I want the lights
Bob, do
on.
you know where the flag is?
Yeah, I didn't get it out. It's my fault.
No, you're all right. We can go slow for a second. Roll call. Everybody is present. We'll wait just a second for the flag to get out here.
They want the lights on, 'cause
Oh,
I
you're
can't
all right.
see
We have a lot going on.
who's showing up.
Thank you so much, Bob.
And maybe you want
And if everybody will join with us and with Jill within invocation.
Dear Lord, we come to you and thank you very much for the opportunity to serve the city of Granger and to do good things for this community. We ask that you lead, guide, and direct our decisions. We thank you for this rain. The farmers especially thank you for this rain. Bring us a little bit more in front of planting season. Be with our loved ones near and far, with those who are in need of your special care and attention. Be with the weak and the poor and the people that are in need in this community, and help us consider volunteers and people who can come forward and help make our community all better. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Y'all join with me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We didn't have anybody sign up to speak, so we're going to go ahead and move on to announcements. And we're going to start with CDBG grant updates.
All right, real quick, we've got 2 active projects that are going on. If some of you haven't seen yet, we've got the Pecan Street Culvert project. They're wrapping that one up. They put the asphalt down about a day or 2 ago. We got some of the lab results back. Everything comes back positive. The last thing we've got on that, the testing company goes in and does a core of the roadway to determine asphalt thickness as well as base thickness. So once that comes in, they put enough in that we said they were supposed to have. Once that's done, we're ready to open that road. So hopefully towards the end of this week, we can remove those barricades and Pecan Street will be back in operation again. I'll do a substantial completion walkthrough with the contractor later this week and develop punch list items for a couple of things that I saw when I was out there earlier. And they've got about 30 days to finish that up, but it's not going to take them 30 days. They should have it done, the punch list items by next week. So again, punch list items, there's no reason why we can't take. Once I issue the substantial completion, the city now takes over the roadway and the bridge. It is now open to the public at that point. The punch list items can happen after that. So hopefully this week we can open that thing up and get some traffic across it. Any questions on that one? Also, real quick, we did get approval to shift money from the 2016 lift station project over to the Pecan Street project. If you'll remember, when we first awarded this, we didn't have the budget to do the sidewalk, the curb and gutter. The council at the time approved, I think it was $20,000 to go ahead and put the sidewalk improvements in. We were able to shift over money from the lift station project. We got great bids on that. So we had enough money that we could shift over that the city doesn't have to pay anything. We were able to pay everything out of the CDBG funds. So that was a lot of good news out of that. So on the lift station project, the lift station was installed, pumps installed. It is now operational right now. The difference in this, it's not fully complete yet. And the reason I say that, they don't have a driveway, the fencing, or anything like that in. But last week I went ahead and issued them a substantial completion on that project just because the city needed to take ownership of it because the existing lift station that's there was on its last leg. So we had to get this station operational. We had to get some wastewater flowing through it. And the only way to do that was for the city to take ownership. That's when the contractor's warranty starts. 1-year warranty begins at the substantial completion time. So on that substantial completion, we had punch list items for the driveway, the fencing. There were a few more issues that I found when we were out there. So those will be completed probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But The station is operational. The existing station has now been taken offline. Spoke with Frank. He just mentioned just a while ago that we're waiting on the electric company to cut the power to that existing utility pole. Once that's done, we can get the contractor out to demolish that existing plant or that existing lift station and clean up. So that one's rolling great. Any questions on that one? Finally, just today, the 2018 applications were submitted. The Commissioners Court approved to move forward with the 2018 funds. What that means is we need to submit an application for a 2018 project for the 2018 funds. The types of projects, just to reiterate, are you've got a housing or non-housing types of project. Housing projects are for public buildings like community center, senior citizen buildings, something like that. The non-housing are your typical utilities, water, wastewater, streets, drainage, things like that. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what project we want to go after for the next round of funds. Applications are due April 4th. So we've got one more council meeting, the March council meeting. At that point, we'll need to know what project we want to chase after. So kind of be thinking through that. Any questions on that?
So you and I spoke earlier about they're using, Weir is building a community center with the CDBG grants.
That's correct.
So that's an option. I think our water and sewer needs the help here the most, but just so council knows that is an option.
Yeah, and keep in mind, community centers, depending on the size, they're pretty expensive. Typically, we try to keep the CDBG funds around $300, $350 price range. Community center, Weir, I think they've got a 5,000 square foot community center. It's going to cost about $700,000 to put that in. What we're end up doing is we're doing 2 phases on that. So we're going to fund a portion of it with the 2016 funds that they just received. We're applying this 2017 funds they just received, and we're going to apply again for the 2018 money for the other half of the community center. Now, typically, Williamson County doesn't like to break things up like that across multiple years, but if we can phase something out, that actually works out better. The problem with the community center, doing it in phases, first phase, you basically have concrete slab, rough plumbing in a closed building. It's really not usable. So they really kind of frown upon that, but they also understand that these things are expensive, and so they'll work with you to do it over 2 phases.
Scott, I forgot to ask, on the bridge, are we going to get gates again?
Yes.
Okay, they took the other ones, and I don't know where they went.
Yeah, they've got those. They're supposed to go back out. Now, one thing about that bridge during a 100-year flood, it is still going to overtop it. To do an actual bridge that would cover or span over a 100-year flood, it would be a full-on structure that we're talking $1.5 million to do, and we just don't have the budget for it. So this bridge, it'll contain a lot more water. You can see the big box culverts that are underneath there. We've got a lot more volume that can go underneath it, but still during a 100-year flood, it is still going to flood. It will go over the top. So that's the reason we left everything flat. We did not put a fence up. On that north side where the sidewalk is, if you'll notice, if you haven't been out there, we've got a rope barrier or steel cable barrier up. So at least if you're walking along on the sidewalk, you don't just fall off into the culvert. The reason for that is we don't want anything that will catch debris during a flood event. So we needed something real lightweight that would flow with the water and not catch debris. So that's the reason that's there. So yeah, during the flood events, we will still have to close the gates, but hopefully it won't be as often as we've had to do in the past. Anything on those?
On here, it says Community Development Block Grant 2016. It says that we're going to have given the city the authority to process with the project. What project is that?
Giving authority to the city to process.
Proceed with the project. It says proceed. Williamson County has executed all contracts and has given the city the authority to proceed with the project. The 2016 grant, she wants to know what the project is.
Well, the 2016 was the lift station. That may be a misprint. Maybe 2017. 2017 was the lift station that we were moving from the south side of town, and we're going to do at the influent of the wastewater treatment plant. Now, the deal with that, it is a shift in the project. Budget stays the same, the scope of work stays the same, the location is different, and that
On
affects the
Roswell,
environment.
right?
What's that?
On Roswell is where it's gonna be now?
No, it's actually going to be in front of the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, we had to make a change because there is a manhole right there. And I don't know if y'all remember, but it's flowing in there and it's not
Yeah.
designed. And so it's actually kind of acting like a lift station, but it's not.
Well, it's extremely shallow, and the more growth that we have, the more wastewater that goes into it. The pipes are at a very shallow slope, so they don't carry as much. Now, when our flow was lower, we didn't have a problem. Now it's getting to the point where it's starting to back up, starting to clog a little bit. So now's the point, we're getting to the point where we need to start doing some improvements around the wastewater plant.
Okay, so we're gonna put out for bids?
Right now, you have not been approved. The money is not available to move yet. So that project has not been designed.
Gotcha.
So once that change in location is presented, Williamson County will send the city contracts to negotiate a contract to enter into an agreement with Williamson County. Once you sign that agreement, now the money is available. Now the city can begin design and then construction.
And best guess, do you think another 2 to 3 months that could happen in?
Actually, they were supposed to have been a couple of weeks ago. But
Okay.
she's a little backed up. A lot of the
Okay.
projects, I know this 2016, 2015 projects that we have for Granger, it sounds like they were delayed, and they were due to weather. But there are other projects that Williamson County is running that are in a lot worse condition than we are. So we're about to finish ours up. Some of them are only halfway through. So we're in a lot better position than the other projects they've got going. So.
Scott, in your opinion, how handicap accessible is the Pecan Street Bridge, the sidewalk area? Is it designed for handicap?
Yes and no. Handicap accessible, you have to have a 2% slope across the entire sidewalk. Now, we've got the 2%. The problem is on the ends. So we don't have that sidewalk connected to another ADA accessible sidewalk. So across the bridge, yes, it is ADA accessible.
Accessible?
Thank you. Too many S's in there. So it is accessible across the bridge, but once you get on the end,
You're back on the
we
street.
don't have anything to tie into there. So
And that's mainly because we don't have any other sidewalks on that
In that
section of
area.
town.
that's correct.
Right.
So eventually, if we add sidewalks, there will be.
One other thing I want to bring up, there is another funding opportunity. These are loans. Texas Water Development Board, they make a call out at the beginning of every year for clean water funds and drinking water funds. What these are low interest loans that the Water Development Board puts out and are made available to municipalities. The benefit to some of these, depending on your average income per capita, they do provide loan forgiveness. These are in 30%, 50%, and 70% loan forgiveness. Granger, I think, could qualify for a 30% loan forgiveness loan, which means you go out for $1 million, you got $300,000 that's forgiven. It's basically a grant, so you're only required to pay back $700,000. The reason I bring this up is we do have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be replaced. The CDBG grant money, like I said, we try to keep it around $300,000, $350,000 to get funded. That doesn't go very far when you're trying to replace a lot of water and wastewater line. So these loans are available through Water Development Board. Again, they're low interest. The reason I bring that up, the first step in applying for these is to submit a PIF. That's a project information form. What that is just a brief general description of the work that you're wanting to do for that loan. It doesn't commit the city to anything. Water Development Board takes these PIFs, compile them together, allocates money to these projects, then they come back to the city and says, we like your PIF, that's a great project, would you like to submit an application now? At that point, the city can say, no, we're not ready, we don't want to do the loan. So a PIF does not obligate the city to do anything. However, if we have not submitted a PIF, we don't have those funds available later if something should come up.
Scott, may I ask a question?
Yes.
On that, how much is the interest rate running on those loans? How low?
The last one that we got was 2.1%.
Are those PIFs submitted on an annual basis?
Now, there's two different kinds. There's the ones that are not loan forgiveness. The Water Development Board has a big pool of money. They take out a big portion of that and set it aside for these low-income cities that qualify for the loan forgiveness. That pool of money, those PIFs are due, I think, March 4th. That's coming up pretty quick.
And they're only good for 1 year.
For 1 year.
Annual. Okay.
That's correct. Now, if you're not going after loan forgiveness and you just need a loan to do some work, you can submit those anytime. Water Development Board has extra money from the 2018 cycle that's ready and available. But again, you will not get the loan forgiveness portion of it. So it's there for an emergency in case you need it. You can apply and go for it. But my suggestion is, this is what I tell all my clients that might qualify for it. It doesn't hurt anything to submit a PIF. Again, it's I think it's a 3-page, 4-page application that you submit. Cost estimates, describes your project. Normally what I do is when I submit those on the description of the project, I'd be as vague as possible. So I say things like wastewater treatment plant improvements, lift station improvements, wastewater line improvements, and leave it at that. The reason for that is something were to come in, if we try to be specific, a problem occurs that is not fit inside your description, you can't use those funds for it. So you try to be as general and broad as possible on your description. Again, you just throw a number in there of what value you think the city might want for a loan. $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever the case is. That doesn't obligate you. You can even accept less. If they come in and say, well, you applied for $1 million, the city, say, for example, we have a problem at our wastewater treatment plant that's going to require $100,000 worth of work. That's a lot of money to come up with, but we can get a low interest loan for Water Development Board, submit the application only for $100,000, even though we applied in the PIF for $1 million. So the whole reason to submit a PIF is to get that money allocated and set aside for Granger when you need it.
And the deadline being March 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't have our next council meeting in time to.
I may be able to address that, sir.
Okay.
I made a mistake. We were supposed to put in here for our order of an election.
Okay.
I missed that. The deadline is February the 16th. So I was going to bring it up, but now's a good time to interject and say that since we do need to have a special council meeting between now and the 16th,
we could throw that on
we
there.
could throw that on there.
Okay.
We need it between now and the 16th or after the 16th?
Before the 16th. The deadline for ordering the election is the 16th.
That's this week.
Yes. So, okay, well, then we can take care of that at the special meeting later. Sometimes things work out.
Great. I like that.
Would you be willing to fill out the PIF?
Yes, ma'am.
And then it would be up to council to kind of find out what we want to do.
Yeah,
that
we'll be
to.
submitting two. One for the drinking water. It's the drinking water side, which is your potable water, and the clean water side, which is your wastewater. So you send two PIFs out. Again, doesn't obligate the city to anything. All it does is earmark some funds for it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Or?
That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Scott.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and move on to grant updates, January 2017. Catherine?
Good evening, Council. Currently, the Texas Historic Society has decided that they are not going to be taking any applications for the Texas Preservation Trust Fund grant until December of this year. So it's actually a cycle and a half of grant money for that particular grant that they've locked up with the work on the coastal recovery. We're still working on getting the mason that's been working on the City Hall project out so we can get the most current evaluation of the east side of the building. And we are in the process of looking for more private, of course they're smaller, but private granting organizations that would be interested in helping us fund the progress of this program. I do think that us getting back into the next THC cycle would be a lot more noticeable as the community starts to grow. So they're very happy with what we've done so far. But, of course, nobody wants to fund projects that are in places where nobody goes. So keep that in mind, okay? The Parks project, the Parks meeting that I had with Texas Parks and Wildlife in Austin went really, really well. I'm really excited to tell you that the Parks grant will be submitting for in October. It's due October 1. Is a 70-30 match, and they tell me that all of our CDBG projects or any property that's been turned over or deeded to the city that we plan on using in the project can count as our 30%. So basically the city has already paid for its 30% of whatever we request in the next round for small communities parks through the last 2 CDBG projects that Mr. Murrah did for you. So basically you paid up front. We've got it covered. We can tell them it's all been there. They're interested in working on parks projects and park project plans that have a community that's growing and developing and putting things down, fixing things up. The Texas Main Street Program.
That's a 70-30 or a 50-50?
That's a 70-30. That one is I'm sorry, you're right. That one is a 50-50. The Trails grant, when we get to the Trails grant, which will be further down the phases, thank you. That one is an 80-20 because the Trails grant is actually funded by petroleum industries. So that one is an 80-20. When we get to that phase in the project, they'll fund a full 80% of whatever we request. This one that we're going to be requesting in October is up to, I believe, I think the max is $300,000 on this one. So as we put together what we're going to do with that, okay. The Main Street Program. I continue to work on the material for that application, but I have to tell you, working with the Parks Department and with the Historical Society, they're both really interested in the fact that Granger is going to make application for that program. Part of their idea and their impression of a community that should have a Main Street program or can develop a Main Street program to the maximum ability has to do with growth in those 2 areas as well. The downtown revitalization and a parks project that gives a cultural center for your community. And as Mr. Murrah mentioned, the CDBG does have some funds that I've noticed. He noticed the same thing. There's some stuff out there. There's actually 2 floating around that we haven't fleshed out the details yet, but we've got some really good ideas for that money. And currently, I think Granger would really fit well in those 2. Questions? All right.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. All right, moving on to Fire Department report for January 2017.
There were a total of 44 calls by the Granger Fire Department, 2 for power lines. There was 1 mutual aid call for automobile collision with fatality. There were 2 outside fires, mutual aid. There was a structure fire with GVFD district. There was an outside fire call local for 4 calls, 7 local automobile collisions, and 27 medical assists for the month of January. They did do their gun raffle and their celebration here at the hall. For everybody that bought tickets, thank you. It's a huge fundraiser for the fire department. And they're always looking for volunteers. Nothing else, Mayor.
Thank you. Utility Department report for January 2017.
Okay, in the Water Department, we repaired 5 water leaks, replaced 3 meter box lids that were damaged, replaced 1 curb stop, replaced 2 valves and a water line for water plant, 18 water disconnects with 8 water reconnects, had our monthly meter readings that we perform every month. There were 21 rereads, did our monthly flushing, cleaned the water plant. In the sewer department, wasted 3 drying beds, cleaned those up, cleaned contact chambers, replaced 14 feet of a 6-inch sewer main, repaired storage shed door lock at the water treatment plant, and repaired a pump and hose for the old lift station and other miscellaneous stuff that we've done. repaired and stored the Christmas decorations. And I'd like to say what a good job the guys did getting those up way before Thanksgiving, actually. Got those up. They looked really great. Tested them on the ground, so when they went up, they looked good. They weren't half working. And occasionally a few bulbs did go out. They were right back on it, getting them fixed. Replaced 2 stop signs for 2 4-way stops. Now we have stop signs at Broadway and Donahoe, also at Broadway and Gabriel. And these were put up to deter and slow down the traffic for the children in the school areas. Then we replaced the flag and rope for the cemetery.
May I ask who decided to put that 4-way stops like that? Whose decision was that?
That was Bob and myself who decided to put them on there because we had concerned citizens about those intersections.
About what?
About the intersection safety for the children.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? Good job. All right. Move on to Police Department report for January 2018.
Nothing to add to the report as indicated.
All right. Thank you, Chief. City Administrator report for January 2018. Andrew?
Thank you. Council, I'd like to take a moment to just express how proud I am of everybody working in the city and the volunteers that have come forward and the activity that we're seeing going around town. It is amazing to see what can be done in 18 months. We have had a lot of activity, and if you go back and look and see what we've accomplished, I have a punch list that I keep updating every week. And I keep on that punch list the things that have been completed, just as a reminder, because sometimes you get discouraged thinking you're not making progress fast enough. And when I look at that punch list and know that we have a great team, it's wonderful to see. I also want to tell you that the month of January was not very pleasant for me. This Friday I will be going in the morning for injections into my spine. I have 3 large erupted discs in the lower back. Now, my medical history is nobody's business, but you can't keep that a secret. So after tonight's council meeting, it took a lot of work to get everything prepared, and obviously I missed a few things, but please forgive me for slowing down a little bit in January. It had been a very rough time. The entire month I didn't sleep. I got 30 minutes at a time before I would wake up. Luckily, they believe that there's an 80% chance that these will heal on their own. So I'm very fortunate to tell you that we won't have to do surgery, and that's good news. So moving on to the report, I'm very, very excited about the activity that, like I said, we see going around. You see a tower going up on Davila Street. That's part of ZocNet's tower. We have had our phones delivered and will be installed tomorrow. These are voice over internet rather than the traditional landline, and with this comes a lot more functionality. So as we configure over the next few days, we will have voicemail, we will have extensions, we will be able to put out outgoing messages such as, you know, there has been a water main break on such and such and such and such, and we know about it. Or it will hopefully reduce the call volume that our clerks and I have to handle. So the information can be delivered over the phone for people who are calling in. In high call volume times, we won't be able to answer every call immediately, but they will get immediate information, and I'm very excited about that. I also like the professionalism that it provides, being able to transfer somebody to a voicemail. The fact that the phone will ring and be answered by a system rather than what we have currently. We will also be able to transfer phones just like we have for the police department. And it's an exciting time for us. I think this is a huge step forward in improving our efficiency for Janine and for everybody involved. So I'm excited to have Roger Turner here tonight to participate with us. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Our annual audit, I wanted to just a quick note. That paperwork has been submitted and it's being reviewed. We haven't heard anything back from our auditor, but they have the paperwork, everything that they've asked for. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern at this point. The roof repairs on City Hall, we had budgeted about $25,000 for those repairs. And thanks to Thomas Malone with Gentex Roof, He did us a wonderful job. He managed to help us get our claim in to TML and get it completely paid for. Meanwhile, we had some rain, and before the roof could be repaired, we had damage to our ceiling tiles, and TML will replace all of that as well. So I'm happy to report that we saved the city $25,000 by filing this claim and having him come and do the repairs for us. It is a top-of-the-line roof. I'm told it'll withstand hail to a certain extent, but it's a 30-year roof. He did put extra flashing that Bob asked for. Now, that portion we did pay for out of the city's money. It came to about $1,300. So extremely excited. It's nice to know that we're not going to get any more rain in our building, and that building will then continue to thrive and function as a main building for the city. So that's exciting news. I mean, couldn't be prouder. Obviously, the bridge repair is really high on my list, and I list things that we've already discussed, and I'm not going to go too far into it, other than to remind people that takes a lot of effort on our part too, in the staff, in the admin. It isn't just about the work that you see going out in the street, because obviously that's visible, but there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that are not quite so visible. So that's an attempt to toot my own horn, and I apologize for taking that.
Andrew, do we have a date set for the dedication? Have we looked at anything or entertained it?
No, and it's on the agenda for that fact.
Okay.
I put it there so that we could entertain that tonight and discuss it. Okay. We're in production of the next newsletter, so if anybody has any suggestions, Citizen Council, please come forward. We always want to hear anything that anybody has to add that's a positive, or even if it's a negative, maybe we can get it out there and get information out there. Our bank changeover, that was an exciting experience. It happened very fast, but there was a lot of paperwork involved and a nightmare for me, but I think the result is going to be extremely positive for Grainger. They have a lot more investment products that are right for us. I think one of them is going to be an overnight investment, so whatever funds we have in our checking account, after the close of business day at 5 o'clock, they go into an investment where they're earning between 1 and 1.5% interest. Then the funds become available at 8 a.m. the next day. It's a low-risk way to earn money, and I think we need to take advantage of it. There's other things. They're going up on their CD rates, so that's very positive. So even though the paperwork was a headache, I think in the long run, looking forward, we're going to have some more money coming back to the city. We have about $650,000 on hand right now. That changes throughout the year. Obviously, we burn through the general fund tax dollars as we go through towards the end of the year. But even still, we're not going to spend it all right now. And we'll have that money to continue to invest until we need it. And that's very important. I mean, I think we can earn somewhere conservatively, very conservatively, $5,000 on the low end and upwards of $12,000 earned cash this year. So, I mean, I'm not going to turn away extra cash. I'm very proud of our guys on the valve repair. That work was incredibly difficult in very difficult circumstances, and I know that the city had to suffer, and we are so sorry. That is not something that any of us enjoy doing. And when we get the calls and when we get angry people on our phone and on our counter, you know, it breaks our heart sometimes, but I really feel like this is in the best interest of Grainger. Just like we needed to repair the roof, you know, that was unseen and didn't disturb anybody, but this affected a large number of people. I'm happy to say that people were very patient with us. Even though we had a lot of calls, I still think that overall they had a lot of patience, and I appreciate that. We've got some new signage going up, obviously. And also our recent RC&D appointment, Lisa Wharton. The RC&D board met here in Grainger, and they ate here in Grainger. They spent their money here in Grainger, and they met people from Grainger. I think all extremely positive, from county commissioners from area counties, and they accepted Lisa Wharton onto their board. So again, very positive. Those are the kinds of things that we need to do in order to increase our grant funding. Obviously, we have a lot of infrastructure problems that we need to address. Roads, stuff under the roads, buildings, such as our city hall. Every opportunity we can take to maximize what funding we can get, we're going to take it. And it's a lot of work, but we're happy to do it for you. As I said before, you can see we have $1.2 million in investments and in cash. I think that's extraordinary. What Scott had mentioned about the low interest rate loans, we have the money to go forward and get that. You know, we can pay for those loans. We are at a very low interest rate at 0.14 per 100 valuation on our debt service. That is extremely low. We're going to need that room, that wiggle room that we have. We're going to see growth and development, and I think we're going to talk about that more tonight, and I'm very excited about it. But as we grow and develop, we're going to need to leverage some of that debt service. So even though we're in a good position now, we know we're going to go into a growth period, and I couldn't be happier about our position heading into this growth period. We have the resources. They're there. We're in a very good standing. Does anybody have any questions about that? I wanted to also, so we know we need to set a date. So it's not on our agenda, but I wanted to know if we could entertain a date for a special meeting. We have to have 72 hours advance notice.
I'm leaving town tomorrow morning. Won't be back till Thursday night.
We only have to have a quorum. It doesn't have to be full council.
Can we do it
We have
Friday
to do
morning?
it by the 6th.
We have to have it done by the end of the day on the 16th. So it could be done anytime during the day or evening on the 16th. It can be done anytime during the day or evening on the day before, the 15th.
I would prefer y'all pick the 16th. Morning or evening, matters not.
I could do the 16th in the evening, and I apologize that whole day I've got meetings.
Anybody else?
I can do Wednesday, anytime, like in the evening.
Don't think that's going to be enough
That's not
time.
enough time. Yeah.
Can y'all do Friday evening?
Yeah.
So 1, 2,
Can you
3.
do Friday evening, you?
I should be able to.
Monica?
I'll just have to make arrangements at work because I'm working till close. I'll have to make arrangements.
What time on the 16th? Anytime. I mean, we could do it at 4, we could do it at 3, we could do it at 6. It's up to you.
I think 6 would be okay.
Later, yeah, later in the
6 or
evening.
6:30. Y'all want us to stick to 6:30?
6:30 is good.
I think it's good because that's when everyone's used to us meeting.
Okay. Let's just do 6:30 on Friday the 16th. Okay.
Six or 6:30?
6:30 on the 16th.
I'll announce the location once I get that approved with Debbie. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you need to talk to Debbie, because I know she's got a lot of events going on this week, one of them tomorrow morning.
If it worst comes to worst, we can hold it at City Hall. It should be a very short meeting. I put it on your seats as an addendum. It's just to order the election. That's non-controversial. It should take 5 minutes.
Oh, and then that line.
And the PIF, yeah.
So it shouldn't take too long, but
I'd almost rather have it at City Hall at this point, but I'll see where we can have it.
okay.
Welcome to the courtyard if you need it.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Seem like I say that every time. What are we spending at Sam's that we spent almost $5,000 in December?
We use the Sam's credit card for everything now. Instead of going with a purchase order or going with the city's debit card, which opens us up to some risk. If we use the debit card and our account gets hacked, that means we could potentially lose money out of that account. And
So
I,
you're using Sam's credit
Credit
card to
cards.
pay other bills?
Yeah,
well,
like Verizon and
we are, in fact. And the reason why we are also doing that, in addition to providing us some protection, it also provides us cash back at the end of the year. So the more we spend on that credit card, the more we earn in return money. We pay it on time every month. These are normal expenses. This isn't anything extraordinary. But every time we use it, we're earning interest. So it's another way to earn money.
Okay, I just thought we were spending an awful lot of money there, but you explained it.
if you ever want to see them, I've got all the receipts. And
I just didn't know we had a Sam's card.
Oh, yeah, no, we do. And so if you ever want to review those, you can ask Andrew or.
It's also beneficial when we do travel and lodging. We can reserve the rooms and have those paid for on the credit card.
I have to find out how you got that, because I need a Sam's card.
It works nicely.
Okay. Can I ask, where's these danger water line signs gonna be put? Where are these water lines at?
Frank,
Pretty much right across the street.
say again?
The field over here across the way. The water line that feeds the Pecos Apartments
Right over here.
Oh, over
is
here.
right at the field. And,
Okay.
and in their infinite wisdom, it was buried 6 inches deep. Yeah, which means they need to know that they're there, and the only way I can do that is to put some posts up and post it for them.
I thought it was like on under the streets, and I was
No,
gonna say, how are you gonna
it's-
stop farmers from driving and?
It's right in their field, and
Gotcha.
he knows it, but he lets other people do it sometimes, and they don't know it. So it's just to help everybody be aware.
Okay, good deal. Should take it from the farmers.
I have one.
Real good, guys.
Any more questions by anybody?
That's it.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to regular agenda item A, discuss, consider possible action concerning subdivision concept presentation for property on the eastern border of North Alligator Road, legally described in Williamson County's tax appraisal records as AW0072 or AW0072. Botello C. Sir, acres 26.313, requested by Marcy Cannon.
Good evening. My name is Marcy Cannon. I reside in Leander, but very excited to be out here in Granger. And I wanted to thank the mayor and the council and city staff for giving us this time. Wanted to give a little bit of background about the owners and myself. We all grew up in Georgetown, and so as we have visited Granger over the years, we love it. It reminds us of Georgetown back when we were kids, and so we're very excited about this project in Granger, and building quality and bringing some good investment to the city. So let me move through this. Since I don't have someplace to put this, bear with me. On our second page, so part of this presentation, it's serves several purposes. One is obviously to explain to y'all what it is that we're wanting to do. Secondarily, to keep us all on track as far as the development process, but also we will be adding to this. This is a living document because we need to do more market surveys and studies to see what it is Granger can support. So that's part of it, and I'll get into more detail there. We're real excited about the distances that Granger is from everything. I think that most people aren't aware of that, and they need to know how close this is. The next page is from the 2016 Census.gov website. And these numbers are in line with several other sources that I've seen. I don't know if y'all are aware of these, but I wanted to bring them up because it plays a huge factor in trying to decide what it is we can do in this area. So your population at 1514, the median household income, $41,023. That's actually increased from 38,000. I think that was in 2014. So that's good. It's on the rise. The median housing value is 85,400. You've got 496 homes. And I'll come back to this in just a second. On the next page is kind of, again, a working document. I'd like you guys to understand that we have to build proof. It's called proofing the market. Because you guys have never had a residential development before, we can't use that to say, oh, well, this housing price worked and this housing price didn't work, and this is how long it took to absorb the inventory. And that's very critical for all of us. We don't want to start a development and then have it stall because we don't have enough buyers because we've priced ourselves out of the market. So there's a fine balance here. Obviously, we want quality. And if the average household income is $41,000, that's like a $100,000 home. So obviously, we're going to be stretching already and reaching and taking a huge risk on who we're trying to reach and bring in here. We believe in Granger, and we believe we can do this with, again, high quality, so we're excited about it. But I want y'all to understand the process that we're going through. Okay, the achievable price point. So I ran some numbers through a mortgage calculator. I'm not a mortgage broker, so bear with me. But these are rough numbers. If your annual income's $41,000 and it populated the monthly debts at $250, which I'd like to know who that is because my monthly debts are a lot higher than that. At $41,000, you can afford a house, get qualified for a $150,000 house. We're talking about homes that are higher than that, $170,000 to $240,000 possibly. Again, we need to proof that. We need to show that this will sell. But that's our range that we're thinking about. But I do want y'all to know that as it stands right now, your average income would support a $150,000 house. Also, before we even turn dirt for the first house, the owner, who's also the developer, will have spent almost $2 million before we turn dirt for the first house. This is in all of the development costs, in pulling the utility lines, making the roads, the lights, the signage, the street signs, the rural park that we're hoping to do, the monument sign at the beginning, and those horrible engineering fees, which are very expensive, as he laughs over there. Very, very expensive. So they are committed to putting in a substantial amount of money and taking a huge risk to be the first ones to come out here and do this. So I'd just like you guys to keep that in mind. One of the other things is when you proof the market, you use that information as a developer to go get these development funds. So if you've got another developer coming in that is pitching the same idea, if they can't proof the market, they're not going to be able to get funding and financing to do this development. That is not an issue with these buyers. So we can start immediately. So on this page here, the development process, and it's different with every city, and obviously this will kind of change up as we go through. The reason why we submitted for annexation and confirmation of LUEs from the very get-go is because we can't even do our land plan until we know how many lots we can do. And then based on that, we can't start talking to home builders, so we can't discuss HOA documents. We can't discuss even width of lots until we know how many LUEs we can get. So that's why we're moving towards this. We've already spent $4,000 to $5,000 on the land plan that you'll see here in a minute. And I just found out Friday that you guys are going to need to take a right-of-way of Alligator Road. So that's going to lose another 9 lots. And we have to go back to the land planner and keep that charging bill going, click, click, click. So,
Marcy, may I have you clarify LUEs for council?
Living unit equivalents, which basically means a house. So, right?
How many bathrooms?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some fancy algorithm that they use, but basically one LUE is 2.7 people or something like that, or 1.75 toilets. I don't know what it is, but it's basically one per house. So that's why it's so important to know what your capacity is and what we can get and guarantee, so that we can then move forward with land planning and engineering and trying to find home builders. Some of the things, again, the right-of-way taking and required setback, I guess y'all are working on that, and you'll let me know how big that is for Alligator Road, because, like I said, that's going to take up, probably we'll lose about 9 lots. And then the lot setbacks. So if you move to the next 2 pages, these are the 2 land plans that we received from SEC Planning. They do a lot of our work. They're, it's a long, skinny piece of property with 8 acres in the back that is all in the 100-year floodplain. So we can't build anything back there. So they did one plan where there's 2 exits, and then the other plan is 1 exit. And the 2 exits is 108 lots. Of course, that'll be closer to 99 lots now. And the 1 exit is 112 units, which again will be 103 units. Now this is based, you can see there's varying sizes throughout there, but it's in the 40-foot range, meaning 40 all the way up to 49. We after much discussion, we feel like we're probably going to have to bump up into the low 50s to make sure that we've got 2-car garages and that we're able to build the home that we envision there. So this is all kind of flexible, and we go back to the land planner and we tell him part of that. The neighborhood park in the back, we had mentioned and offered, and the offer still stands, to donate that to the city as part of a public park, if you guys would be interested in that, and I don't know if you are or not. Otherwise, it would be considered a private park just for the residents there.
Are we talking about a gated community?
No, but it would be privately owned by the HOA, and of course anyone could go there, but but it wouldn't be per se Hattie Mae Blues Public Park. All right. All right, let me see. Sorry, okay, so what we've done here, thank you. As you scroll, I don't have to stumble through everything. What we've done here is kind of give you guys an idea of what our vision is. We love Granger. We love the old homes and that style, which is kind of a cottage style. There's not a whole lot of developers that are doing that. It's built with hardy plank, or what they call rhino board, which has got a 20-year warranty on paint and any kind of chipping or anything. So when you talk about longevity and sustainability and quality, you don't have to paint it for 20 years. But that kind of look we're feeling might be a little better suited for this area. One of the things, so what I've done is on each one of these homes, I just went through a lot of the neighboring communities, look to see what do they have kind of in our price range, what do the houses look like, what are the square foot, that sort of thing, so you guys can kind of get an idea. We can't commit to the exact type of home because we don't know who the builders are. We are pursuing and want to do the front porches, the community feel that comes along with these kind of cottage style. And you can see it still has masonry on it. So all of that would be kind of up for discussion. I would like to point out that this home that you see right here is 1,367 square feet. It is in Leander, very expensive at $272,000 for a 13 square foot house, which is $69,000 a year. So obviously, we're not building in Leander, so the price wouldn't be up that high. So the next one, this is a perfect example of kind of the look that we're really attracted to, where you've got a front porch, you've got your garage there, multi-stories. This one, unfortunately, is in Austin. It's only 1,900 square feet, and they're selling it for $326,000. That's $82,000 a year in income. So, okay, now we're moving, the next one is Taylor. And so I've gone through here, and the first slide here is going to be the smallest home at 1,675 square feet, and they're offering it for $197,000, which is $50,000 a year. So now we're getting closer to what we feel like we can get people approved for. Also, let me interrupt here and say, one of the options we could do, obviously you don't come in there and just build 100 homes all at once because of the absorption rate of how quickly you can sell them. We could do it in phases to where the homes in the front maybe are closer to this 200, and if we start seeing a higher percentage of people saying, I want a bigger house, we could quickly and easily, phase 2 could be much bigger houses. So that's the flexibility we have by doing a smaller development like this. And with y'all's help, that's the flexibility we could have. Okay, so the next page is also Taylor in the same neighborhood, and this is their largest home they offer. It's 3,000 square feet for $250,000, and that's $63,000 a year for qualifying. Now, of course, that all depends on how much money you're going to put down, how much debt you currently have, but these are kind of just some rough numbers here. Most of the homes that I'm going to show you that are built in Taylor, Manor, Hutto, Jarrell are the traditional brick style home, which we'll do if we need to, but we kind of like the smaller town cottage feel. Maybe it's not called a cottage, but we feel like it's more community.
Craftsman style.
It's what?
Craftsman style.
Yes, but probably not on the inside.
Right.
So yes, Craftsman says a lot of wood on the inside, but yes, right. Very similar to that. Okay, so the next, I need my glasses too. The next small home here is in Manor, and KB Homes is building this. It is 1,234 square feet. I put the floor plans in here because it's kind of shocking that a home for 1,234 feet could actually have 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and a 2-car garage. But it does, and it looks pretty good. And so there's the floor plan so you can kind of reference it.
That's my first house.
See, KB Homes, they know how to do it. In this development, KB has all of the homes, and they have 13 designs that someone can go in and change up and choose from. This is a really good example because the income qualification is $48,000. So that's right in the zone, and that's a nice product. The higher end, on the next screen, the higher end in Manor is almost 2,500 square feet, and it sells for $219. So it's really not that much higher. And that is about $55,000 a year in qualification. And this is a big house. It's got 2 stories. It has 4 to 5 bedrooms, 2.5 to 3.5 baths, and a 2-car garage. So that's a really nice size house. All right, the next screen is Hutto. This is a home built by D.R. Horton. And the smallest home they have there is 1,338 square feet, and they're asking $213 for that, which is $56,000 a year. This is a 1-story, 3-bed, 2-bath. And the highest one there in the Riverwalk in Hutto is 212 square feet for $264,000, which is a $68,000 annual income. And I wanted to say also on the header here under each of the specs, you can see the size of the lots. So far, most of these are in the 40s, 40 foot by 110 foot. Some are 50 foot by 120 foot. Because you always want to offer that a little different. You want to offer some on the low end, some on the high end, so that you're meeting your market wherever they are. So you can reference that and see what type of house can fit on what size lot. The next one is Gerald. And this is a Lennar home. It's almost 1,400 square feet for $168,000, which again is in the 40s. That's a $48,000 annual income. So that's totally doable in this area. The next size is the largest size in Gerald. It's 2,348 square feet. But see, the prices are so much more reasonable because you're in Gerald. That's going to be reflected the same here in Granger. So you go up to $206,000. So that's about $53,000 a year for qualifying. The second to the last one here is, this is an interesting development in Liberty Hill. It's by a company called LGI. They only market to apartment dwellers, which is very interesting. Soon as you walk in, they sit you down and they pre-qualify you before you ever look at any plans or anything. And then once you have your pre-qualification of what you can pay, then those are the only plans they show you. It's kind of a unique marketing setup that they've got. But they're in Liberty Hill. They've got 5 different designs. They're only going to have 54 homes. It's on a very, very small chunk of land. It's smaller than the 18 acres that we're building on with 54 lots, because these are 45-foot wide lots. This is $205,000. And so that's around $53,000 a year. And does it say? It doesn't say the square footage on these LGI homes. It's all part of their marketing deal. The largest home that they've got is $251,000, 2 stories, 5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and that's at $63,000 a year in annual income. So we wanted to kind of give you an idea of the research we've already done, because this has to be successful for everybody, obviously. And we hope and have plans and want to continue to do this over and over again. Being the first one on the market, we know everyone's going to be watching us. And as we're successful, you guys are going to get a lot more coming in. So it's going to be slower and a little harder for us because we're kind of paving the way for our competitors. But I guess that's the way it goes. In the back, the 8 acres, that is a huge amount of land. One of the ideas we had in there for kind of a rural park, untouched, natural, possibly a like crushed granite walkway through there. I don't believe there's a creek that runs all the time. Okay. Okay, just when it floods. But meanwhile, we can't really use it. It could be used for any kind of recreational fields, soccer fields, baseball fields, those sort of things, you're allowed to put in the floodplain. So these are just kind of some examples. On the bottom, it's that natural amphitheater, which I love so much, and I wish somebody would build that. On the last page, again, these are low maintenance park amenities. So we're looking at quality, want to install it once every 20 years, the concrete, benches and tables. No one can steal those. If the water rises above them, they're fine. So something similar to these things, we could foresee being out there for citizens to use. The last thing I wanted to just touch on, because I just pulled all of the census report on census.gov. It's now available for 2016, which is kind of shocking because they're usually like 4 years behind. And I'll send these to you so that you can have them. It's interesting that your total population as of 2016 is 1,308 people, pretty much equally divided between male and female. I think this might be a little surprising to some, is the bulk of your population comes from ages 35 to 54. So someone had told me it was an older age range, and I said, no, it's not. So your average age here in this town is 41 and a half years old. I thought that was interesting. Again, this is all information that we use to kind of proof up who can do this. One of the things that has caused other residential builders, some hesitation about coming out here is your labor force. You're showing only 48.8% of your labor force is employed. And so, of course, that's concerning. Our hope is that when we market and show how close Temple and everything is so close to here, that we're going to be bringing in higher income people from the outside, which obviously helps everything and everybody and whoever owns a bar and a club. Another interesting fact, probably doesn't surprise y'all, but 81% of your employed people commute to work. Probably not surprising. And the average commute is 29 minutes. So when we look at then doing the market study, we can increase our circle to about a 30-minute drive and then include all of that in who we're marketing to.
Marcy, can I add one thing to that? About the distance. I'm sorry. I will back up.
Yeah.
The average for the American is 40 minutes. So we are under the average.
Which is great because you don't have the Austin traffic, so you can get to Temple in 30 minutes, So that's or less. Sorry. All right. All right. And then I've got another report here that shows your total housing units right now is 496. Of that, 416 are occupied and about 80 are vacant. This is the number that is hard for a developer to take a risk on, the one I'm about to tell you, which is from 2014 to today, there are 0 new homes built that are registered homes built. So there might be some outside of the city. I know we talked about some on the 10-acre tracts here and there. But as far as the census report shows, within the city limits, so I don't know how the city reports to the government there's a new house, but that's where it comes from. From 2010 to 2013, there were 25 homes. So basically in the last 8 years, there's only been 25 homes built. And we're talking about tripling that number. And our absorption rate had better be under 4 or 5 years, because then the project is stalling. So we're talking about a pretty good chunk of people moving here and making an impact. And obviously, they're going to help bring up the median income because they can't qualify for the house otherwise. And you have 138 homes that were built before 1939. The majority of your homes are 2 and 3 bedrooms. 285 are owner occupied and 131 are renters. So you guys do have a very strong renter market out here. Average household size is 2.7. So is that an LUE? We would hope that is. The year that people moved into their household, now these are not new homes, but just current homes, they're showing that from 2010 to 2014, there was 163 people who moved into the units, the homes. So that's interesting. Most of your homes are running on gas, 302 versus 106 on electricity. The largest value of home is between $50,000 and $99,000, averaging $84,000 is the median household value. So again, when you talk about doubling that value and even maybe even 2.5 times that value, your property tax that you guys are going to be getting is going to be very sweet. It's going to be nice. So those are some.
What was your single most compelling reason for doing development?
The beauty. The beauty. We've been driving out here. The owner's been driving out here. We've been driving out here since high school. We love it. We love the old town, the historic town. We would love to get involved in some of, the projects, the grants that she's got going. We saw that there's a need when we were evaluating Manor, Hutto, Gerald, and generally speaking, the residential developments that are exploding and expected to explode in the next 4 years are on the east side of I-35. Partly because the west side of I-35 is so expensive, people can't, there's no entry-level homes. There's no price point entry-level homes in Cedar Park or Leander. Liberty Hill has some, but again, the majority of Liberty Hill developments now are what we call step-up homes. They're not entry-level homes. So in just driving around all of the different towns, we noticed Granger, and it definitely gave all of us like warm feelings about where we grew up, and it's just so beautiful. We've had bike rides, 63-mile bike rides from Georgetown to Granger Lake and back. So we've been in this area kind of looking and hunting around for a long time. We could wait. We don't need to push this. We could just sit on it, land bake it, and wait and see what happens. But I'm telling you, the owners really believe in Granger, and they really want to see something started soon. They're excited about it, and so am I. We're all very excited about it. Your owner-occupied units of 285 homes, only 131 of them actually have mortgages. 154 people have paid off their home. So I'm telling you, all your neighbors' business. All right. The gross rent. I know you've got some rental houses. I think probably other people do too. The gross rent is $778 a month for those of you who have rental homes. So that ends my presentation, but I'm excited to try to answer any questions you might have. Hit me. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. On which side?
The only house right there at the corner of your lot.
Oh, good. Are you a Bohat? Am I saying it right? Oh, Bohat. Okay. We're not going to encroach upon you. Possibly. Possibly.
Not joking.
We were actually just talking about that and looking at the land plan. Again, this widening of Alligator Road is kind of taken us by surprise because when you take out 9 lots, it's pretty significant on our return on investment.
And we surprised you on
Yes,
that, and I'm sorry about that. But
okay.
we came into some information that
Yeah.
made us realize that size of a road wasn't going to be serviceable as we expect to grow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So it makes sense to go ahead and plan for that now.
Who's gonna do that? Who's doing that and who's paying for it?
So, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
We can't even
Have
fix the
y'all
ones
already
we got.
done a development, or is this your first development you're going?
This family is old Georgetown family. They've done over 10 develops in and around Georgetown.
Okay. So this is, and I'm speaking for me alone, okay? For me, being the first one that has come to Granger, I personally want to make sure that we do things right.
Absolutely.
Because whatever the first one is done is the template for the future.
Absolutely.
So I have a lot of concerns about, okay, whatever happens, let's make sure we get this one right. Because those homes are going to be here for 70 years.
Absolutely.
Long after anyone on this council is dead and gone. The 40-foot lots are concerning to me, and I know they come in other places. There's a few places that have done 40 lots, even going through this. Most of those are 45 or 50 foot lots. So when I looked at
40 foot means all the way up to 49, just so you know, in development terms, so it lends some flexibility to it. But go ahead.
My house was built in the 60s here, and it's 60 foot across. My house won't even fit on that piece of property. So in my perception, when I saw 40 foot and car garages, I'm going, that's not a lot of room. So I like the thought pattern of 50 foot lots and going towards that right. And I realize that increases your price point.
For the end users, substantially.
Yeah. I mean, land's money.
That's right. Well, it just also means further pipe and, you know, there's kind of a ripple effect. But we agree with you that there most likely will not be any 40-foot lots. However, as we're testing this market, if we see phase 1 is stalling and we can't get people qualified, one of the options would be phase 2 to do garden homes, which are, you know, smaller and hardly any lawns, and they're well built, but they would be a little bit less expensive and more acceptable. You're right. It's a conundrum that we keep going back and forth on because we absolutely want quality. Most of what we've done in the past are $400,000 to $1 million homes. So we build quality, and that's what we want to see here. But we also have to keep it affordable, otherwise we can't do it, and neither can anybody else. So how do we do a home that is quality, sustainable over the 70 years, welcoming community where people feel comfortable walking around and sitting on their porch and creating that environment? That's part of the market study that we're still having to do.
So on the map,
Yes.
just looking at this, if we were to, and this is just my,
Which one are you looking at? One or two entries?
the one entry,
Okay.
and the one entry, in my opinion, gives a little bit larger lots. And the reason is around the corners because you have 4 cul-de-sacs.
Mm-hmm.
So if we had a phase 1 that did that first street, maybe within, I'm sorry, I won't bother counting all those, but I'm going to say about 30 homes.
You can't, well, all of the lots that touch the road are going to have to go away, just so you know.
Okay, so all those. So let's say that first box.
Yes.
And is that kind of what you would be envisioning a phase 1?
No, most likely it would be, because we have to build the roads and we have to build a turnaround, we would be doing all of the homes all the way across, maybe to that first cross street.
Which way?
Horizontally.
This way.
Yes, yes.
Like all that, okay.
Yes, most likely.
So that would be a phase one, and so let's say that phase one did a build out in 2 years.
Oh, we'd be so happy.
So
We'd already have broken ground on phase 2.
Okay, so I just don't know timelines.
Yes.
So let's say if that was a 2-year build out for that, then y'all would obviously know it's moving well.
We'll know by month 6 or 9, by the time we have that model
Okay.
open, that we're gonna start breaking ground and turning dirt on the next phase.
Okay.
That's how quickly we'll know.
And another thing is, so the majority of these, I'm guessing, not all, but the majority are 40-foot lots. And so, but if we did a mix of like some maybe 50s, whatever you had said, and then maybe a couple of 60s here and there to justify some higher end homes.
We saw towards the park that maybe that might, on the
So
park.
toward the back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the front, so let's say phase one built out quicker than y'all anticipated, and the houses sold very easily, then y'all would be able to, in a phase two, maybe increase the lot sizes slightly or higher end homes.
Right. Again, I think that when we submit for a new land plan that removes all those frontage lots, we're going to request 45 to 49 or 50 foot lots for the majority of them, because in looking at the 2-car garage homes, we see that we're going to need to have that wide. A lot of the 40-foot lots that you see, and again, we started with 40 foot because that's what all your competitors are doing, 40 to 49 foot. And they're selling and they're doing well, and people are very excited about it. You have to remember that millennials don't like doing a whole lot of chores, or do I? And I'm not a millennial, so keeping, lawns and such when people are away from their home for 10 to 12 hours a day. It's very acceptable. That whole mega house and dream to have a $4,000, that ship has sailed. That is not what the new market is looking for at all. And quite frankly, they can't afford it.
So Marcy, on your plan right there, given that is my house right there.
Yes.
Right behind it shows a lot to be built for a home.
Yes.
Okay. How much ground room are you getting the fire department to be able to get to these houses? Because there's no easement to my house, and you have to come either in the front, which if you get rid of those houses, fine, and if you got my house in the burns, but there's no way to get to our property if you're building a house without a snap my fence.
Your access is where it is right now off of Alligator Road.
No, I'm saying the fire department.
That's where their access is to you.
They can't get to my house from my carport from this side to get.
And so you've been accessing your property through.
No, we come in and out our front driveway. That's
Okay.
not a problem. I'm saying the fire department's got to get to my house to put out a fire.
Yeah.
And you're building houses around the edge of mine.
Right, but also realize that first line right there isn't going to be there because of the expansion. So
So
it'll
what's
look
gonna happen to
different.
her land? Because that's part of hers too, isn't it?
No,
With
that's
that
mine
road.
right there where it
is
is
hers,
right there,
yeah.
that corner.
I know, but if you're gonna take that first part and make that a road, she's in the road.
If we have to expand, and it's a long-range plan, but we want to plan for it ahead of time. We're not talking next year, the year after.
She's planning on going nowhere.
So when are y'all planning on starting to build?
So
The development process itself could be 6 to 9 months going through all of these approvals with the city.
Widen, the road in front of me.
So-
And,
I'm sorry, but I'll finish.
Up to 25 feet
Go ahead.
in the front door of somebody's house. And,
Is this a county-owned
well,
road?
I mean, but
Right
they're
now,
buying.
the county line is in the middle of the.
So-
No, it's not correct. No, ma'am. County road, ends right where your house is, and then the rest of it is Alligator going to the south.
Why doesn't the city do anything on that road when we ask them to? We have to call the sheriff's department for speeders on that road because it's.
You're out in the county. Your residence is in the county.
That street is what I'm talking about.
Yes, ma'am, and
The street
that
is.
unordinance school zone was put up by the county back when that was a county road. It was never adopted or ordinanced by the city. So therefore, the police department cannot enforce its school zone.
Well, if y'all don't mind, let's focus on the subdivision.
So-
because we need to stay on point with this.
Two things. The city's looking at expanding road?
We have to.
Okay,
Because-
so if we're looking at expanding road in there, how does that affect her house?
That's called eminent domain. If the need is there, we have to take it.
That's why she wants to sell to us now.
So here's, obviously y'all are doing design and I'm not trying to get into this. I'm just looking at this, trying to figure out how this all works. What type of right of way are you thinking the city needs?
Well, that I hope to get engineer study on. It really just depends because you have to remember there's a big 125 acre lot to the north that could be turned into a subdivision. There's also property that we know that's being marketed for subdivisions. And so thinking ahead, if I get 350 new homes in this area in the next 5 years and the school decides to put a school out there, that road is not wide enough.
And if I can add, I can add a little bit to that. So just north on Alligator, there is a property, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 80 acres. And it runs from Alligator to 95, and it's, I think the list price is 800,000, somewhere in that range. And so that is a pull-through road, and the reason for that is if that were to become a subdivision, that would be probably 50 times bigger than this one.
Well, not that much.
Yeah,
It'd be about four times. It'd be
yeah,
4 times bigger.
It would be a lot bigger. And so,
Can I address from an engineering standpoint? Most of your right-of-ways on local streets, which is in subdivisions, are typically about 50 feet. The Granger ordinance requires 60 feet and a 24-foot roadway width. For your arterial collector streets, those are 70-foot right-of-way, 34-foot roadway width. The reason you take your right-of-way now from a developer is it's easier to get the right-of-way from them now.
Right.
They need your permission to build. That's not to say you're going to go out and build something right now, but now you've got the right-of-way. Now, we understand there's a house right next door that right-of-way might encroach into. That's something you deal with later. Typically, what cities do is when a developer comes in, you get your right-of-way, you get your easements during that planning process. So now that's taken care of for your future. Doesn't commit the city to build anything, it's just now the city's got the right-of-way there for future road, whatever that case is.
Do you know how much right of way we have on that road right now?
Honestly, I don't.
It's like a two-lane, right?
The current city limits are the
The
eastern
county roads are like
edge of the
24 to
road
25.
back. Yes.
It's 24. Now, on traffic impact studies, we're talking about a huge piece of property a little further down the road. When you get to that large, that's when the city can request that developer to do a traffic impact analysis. That's where the traffic engineer will come in. They'll put out the little road strips that you see, and they'll count traffic, count cars, and then they can compare that to what is about to hit when they do the development. Based upon that, they'll give you traffic counts, and now based upon the traffic counts, the city can use that data to say, all right, well, we need an 80-foot right of way, or whatever that case is. So you don't hit that point until, that developer comes in and put that requirement on the developer. So
The TIA, I believe, kicks off when you generate 1,000 cars a day. So obviously, we're not going to be generating 1,000, but another home that's 4 times the size, 280 homes, they probably won't kick that off either. But that's typically when it is. You can always ask them to do it for you. It's not cheap, but that's part of the engineering budget that starts getting higher.
nibbling, yeah.
What ordinance are you coming off of? Because right now, we don't have any. Remember? They turned them in last April. We haven't sat and done an ordinance thing yet.
Correct.
Explain.
We have some ordinances, they're not where we need them to be. It's not that we don't have ordinances.
We're still working on them.
This is typical city process. So when we
Zoning
talk,
stuff is an ordinance,
Right.
and we just put those back in the file.
Yeah, we voted on that, but we didn't vote on nothing else.
we
I'm
voted on,
totally confused on your ordinances, but go ahead now. That's another subject.
I noticed that as well as I was doing some of the due diligence. The property that we are, submitting here, we do development in Georgetown, Austin, Leander, very strict ordinance policies, and we're pretty much in line with those. I would be pretty safe to say that we're going to exceed anything that you guys will write up. We know that we're first out here. We know it's important to create a master plan, a community with the quality that's going to last. We're very sensitive about that. Can I answer any other questions?
Does anybody else have any questions about if this is a one entrance, and then there is one that has a two entrance on it?
Yeah, so this butts up, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
To Oak Street, not knowing if that's what you wanted to do or not. And then the land planner on his own went ahead and created two ingress egress here. Here's my personal concern about the two. The distance between Oak Street and that southern entrance into our development, and then I can't see the next one, which is landscape. Oh, Pecan. Yeah. Those distances, I haven't measured them, but they're not very far. And as you widen your road, there's typically Austin transportation criteria that you follow, TxDOT criteria. And those distances it depends on how fast the road is going to be, but at a minimum, 200 to 400 feet. And I'm concerned that they're too close.
That was my thought pattern, and so that's why I personally liked the one entrance, because if you're on Pecan, you can come up and stop at a stop sign and directly pull into the subdivision.
you mean on Oak?
Or I'm sorry, yes. On Oak. So whereas the other one, you're going to be turning right and snaking in there. I think that, and I'm not a traffic expert, but I think that would increase the possibility of collisions.
Yes.
So that is the only reason I guess I personally like the single entrance, is because I'm concerned about traffic.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you can take Oak Street to get to the school, correct?
Yeah.
And
Sort of. You'd have to turn on Mustang.
Yeah.
If you want to go out.
Yeah.
well, I don't know
fix that.
how far it is. I don't know if, these are entry-level homes, so we're talking about younger families, usually with kids that are elementary and middle school. You may have bike riders and walkers, and so having one crosswalk to manage is probably a little safer.
So can I interrupt you? I want to address a couple of things.
Yes.
As far as dovetailing on what Scott had said about the long-range plan, when we negotiate with developers, we want to acquire what we think we might need now, rather than have you build these lots and then go, oh, we need to take that.
Right.
It's
very expensive for you to do so once the homes are built.
Buy all the houses. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other part I want to address is the money and the cost of upgrading the area, widening that road, utilities, you name it. As I said at the beginning of the meeting on my report, we are poised for that growth very well. Like I said, 14 cents per 100 evaluation is on your debt service. That's incredible. Our debt service will be paid off in 4 years. We refinanced our debt to save $75,000. All of that is incredible stuff. And if we get this development, we could accelerate that down to 2 years. Okay. So when we get ready to go and get more debts to pay for these expansions, will not be cheap. But we've also planning to get growth and development planned through grant money. So it isn't like it's going to be this massive, scary thing. Now, what will be scary is if we get 3 or 4 of these developments. So I'm almost excited that you guys want to go a little slower. I'm happy to hear that, but I think this is totally doable, and I think this is the right time.
We'll go as fast as people are lining up. That's our goal. Some of the additional things that we're not sure about, we won't know about until we get into engineering, after we do another land plan with the comments and removing the right of way. We don't know if we're going to need a pump station on those back homes. So, well, our engineer will have to do that, but that's, going to be an additional expense for us.
Does anybody else have any concerns, or is anybody else, I think some of this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think some of the helpfulness is everybody okay with one entrance, or would y'all like 2, or?
I think the more we can address from this council right now, the better. I mean, hit it hard, hit it fast, get your concerns addressed right now, and don't be shy.
Yeah, so, if y'all have something. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'll be ready. I like the one entrance. First of all, it gives, in my opinion, there's pros and cons with one entrance. Obviously, if you have one entrance and there's a wreck, everybody's locked into that neighborhood. So 2's better from that aspect. But you also have one point of dealing with kids and stuff. This is going to be starter homes, so you're going to have kids walking to school. So one point for us to put a crosswalk and have police monitoring is obviously cheaper for the city in the long run for the time being.
The other aspect to add on to yours is we need an ordinance at school zone out there on Alligator Road and put proper signs in. You're also going to have to put sidewalks in, because we currently have one family that lives out there and they park all their vehicles out in the street, which is still legal. It's not a violation of our parking laws. As long as you can see 300 feet and give you direction, you can park your vehicle out in front of your house. But it does restrict traffic, and there's no sidewalk. So where are the kids going to walk? They're going to walk out the street.
I'm sorry, you mean on Oak Street?
On Alligator.
Alligator is coming up to you.
So well, those are kind of my thought patterns on the one entrance. I like the one entrance. There are some, if you have a fire, you obviously have a choke neck or an accident, but it's a very good thing from traffic for kids and also getting in and out of Alligator Road. One stoplight's better than 2 if someday we need it, because there's 1,000 homes down that road later. Y'all haven't gotten into this, so I don't really have a good concept of what all amenities you're putting in. Are you planning on putting in sidewalks? Again, it eats up area.
Right.
When you turn it over to the city, that's long-term maintenance for the city too. What type of roads are y'all putting in? Are y'all planning on doing curved roads?
Yes.
One of my
curb and gutter, correct? Yeah.
One of my concerns when I saw the annexation on the agenda is once we take it into the city, we lose negotiation power.
Oh no!
In some ways we do, because y'all want the lower water rates.
Actually,
the citizens want it.
Yes.
We do, once we annex, have ordinances we can put on over that area. Water rates, sewer connection fees, and things like that play into the big plan too. Whatever we do, one of the things that my concern has always been about developments coming in, however we write this and we get into it, when that subdivision is finally built out, I think we need to make sure that the roads are in the initial built condition.
Of course.
For coming to the city.
Whatever the specs are that you'll need them. Standard neighborhood specs, and we can provide you with multiple city specs, and you guys can approve those.
And normally there's a maintenance bond that's put up with the subdivision, especially an HOA, something like that. There's a maintenance bond that's put up. It's good for a year after the subdivision is built. So any issues during construction or after construction that are a result of the design or result of the construction, that maintenance bond takes care of that.
Leander, you mentioned Leander earlier. They put some really stringent requirements so that once that development turned it over to the city, they had a lot of requirements for, okay, these roads are gonna be in this condition before you turn them over to the city, which was very long-term planning. It helped the city. And those were things that they put in.
Shut down the road.
It did. But they're also dropping 5 homes a day too.
We've actually leveled off, but,
Now, we'll also say right now, they haven't filed a plat or
Right.
anything like that, so technically it's not subdivided. The city gets the review of the plat, the city gets the review of all the construction documents. So you still have all that process to go through. So even though you annex them and bring them in, there's still a process they have to go through to get approval from the city before they can even turn the shovel.
That's this page.
what I
thank you,
would like
Andrew.
to also point out is that if we wanted to do shanties and mobile homes, we would not request annexation. Because then we can do whatever we want to do, and we don't need any city approvals. We are not doing that. We are trying to be a good neighbor. We want you guys to have the property tax. We want a nice neighborhood. But we can purchase water and wastewater from y'all and just stay in the ETJ and put, 300-400 mobile homes on there. That's what anyone in the ETJ can do. I know because my neighbor did it to me. But that is not what we want to do. We plan on being here and staying here for a long time. We want a quality development. We want to be part of the city and help with that. So whatever standards are typical, like I said, we build in Georgetown, Leander, those are going to be the same standards that we're going to bid out here. We do anticipate the curbs and the gutters, of course, and that's stormwater under the roads. All of that adds quite a bit of expense. And of course, sidewalks. We didn't even think twice about that. That would be part of it. Because we're trying to do the community.
And will the utilities be underground?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so,
Including
Zockneck. Okay.
That's what we want. It goes on a spreadsheet. We're going to try our hardest. So I got to talk to you about how much you can charge us. But yes, we absolutely will go underground.
And I want to go on record before any other discussion. Annexation is the best way to go. And she is absolutely right. We have more leverage if they're annexed. And I think the property revenues, because we're going to provide services and we're going to grow, and these people are going to come to us for things. And we need to be able to provide the best service we can. That takes money. We want their tax revenues.
And this is helpful, at least I should say it was helpful to me. And Andrew included this in y'all's packets. It says the development process for land in the city of Granger, ETJ. If y'all look back in your packets, you can see that it has the process in there. And so, the first part, submission of sketch plan, which we've already gotten, submission of preliminary plat, we've gotten that, but it's going to have to change.
Right.
Advertising for public dates, I guess we haven't really done that because y'all just came to council. And so, conduct public hearing with zoning committee, recommendation to city council by zoning committee, conduct public hearing at city council meeting, which that's probably...
Those will be concurrent. One follows the other at the same day.
Okay. Take action at preliminary plat by city council, submission of final plat, conduct public hearing at zoning committee, recommendation to city council by zoning committee, conduct public hearing at city council meeting, take action of final plat by city council, submission of rezoning request, advertise rezoning request, public hearing. I believe some of this we won't have to do.
The zoning request, because it's going to be newly annexed and it's not going to be zoned, so,
so
technically you're rezoning it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, when you annex, doesn't it default into single family annex?
I'm not sure. I'd have to find out.
It does in the other cities, but I'm not sure.
We'll probably, since we haven't done one in a while, our ordinances we are working on them. It's just, we've had a lot of utility things that we've been working on. Take action on final plat by city council, submission of rezoning request, advertising rezoning request, conduct public hearing in zoning committee, make recommendations to city council, conduct public hearing at city council. City council takes action in rezoning request, Then we move on to annexation tract, annexation request by the property owner, acceptance of annexation request. City council sets public hearing dates, advertise public hearing, conduct 1 public hearing, conduct 2 public hearing, ordinance approved by city council.
So the annexation can go by itself and then follow immediately by the subdivision, or we can run concurrent with annexation and subdivision. Just depends on how fast you want to move.
Here's our concern. First, so to answer your question, how quick? Now I don't know. That's a lot of steps, and you have to give notice in 2 weeks between each one of them. So it's going to be up to y'all and your flexibility and your desire to get this thing moving. But then here's our issue. Every time we go back to the land planner, which is this guy, has nothing to do with engineering, it's $4,000 to $5,000. And we're already going to have to go back now because of the right-of-way. Any comments that you guys have on this layout, please let us know now, because we want basically your buy-in before we go back to the land planner and get the second round. Now, after that, we'll come back and present the land plan and the concept plan. We need the city approval on that. It isn't until after that that we can start negotiating with builders, because we can't tell them what they're buying. You know, we have to show them a picture, show them how big the lots are and what the setbacks are, and that we have underground fiber. So this is something that we're having to do on the side here. And then we have to submit everything to engineering. Our concern is an engineering bill on a project like this could be $30,000, $40,000. Obviously, we're not going to do that before we're annexed, and we're not going to do that before having some sort of approval from you guys that this is a go, because then we've wasted $40,000 and 3-4 months of time, which to us time is more critical. So as far as the subdivision process, we have to know what size lots we're going to be able to do before we can go through a lot of the subdivision, the preliminary plat, zoning. So there's a couple ways that some cities go around it. We could sign a development agreement with you guys, which is a binding contract. If this, then this. So if we're going to build this, then you guys will annex us and give us X number of LUEs. And that then enables us to go try to find builders and buy in before we start spending tons of engineering money. We are committed, though, and we want to spend the engineering money. We just want to fast track this and make sure that we're not going back and forth
Correct.
with little tiny changes.
Correct, and I understand that. I'm assuming the one, is anybody here have a problem with the one entrance?
With the what?
The one entrance.
As an option, Marcy, and feel free to shoot it down, but I've highlighted the spot on the map right there. I expect at some point some of these lands around this new division are going to be developed also. Would it be possible to put a dead-end road so that it might connect to a future development? Is that something you guys want to entertain?
It's possible. How quickly can we get all our approvals?
Well, I'm committed, but this is your council.
I know that. That's the give and take.
and that actually brings up another question. If this is successful, and let's for argument's sake say y'all achieve a build out in 5 years, will y'all be investing again in Granger?
Absolutely. We'll know within probably year 2.
Okay, so it won't even be 5 years.
Right. It is. We're already entertaining and moving that direction. That's how much we believe in the area.
Okay. I personally, and I don't know how the council feels, but I like a mix of lots, different sizes.
It hits a broader market base, so.
It does. It makes it look more of a for lack of a better word, a more mature neighborhood.
Yes.
And so, because of, in our current neighborhoods in Granger, the lot sizes do vary.
I noticed. Yeah.
So,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
We're talking about her part. What about the city's part? How much is it gonna cost us to provide water to them, sewer, whatever else we have to, and the road, which we did not know about.
Okay,
So-
Andrew, would you do me a favor, if possible, can you bring up our Google map of our,
I'll try.
if you can't, do you have internet? If not,
It looks like we do, but it's gonna be a little slow. If you give
And
me
I
a few
might wanna
minutes.
take this in closed session, cause I'd like to talk to the man who runs the water and the sewer and get his input just to us first.
Okay.
Because that man is the one that does the work, and
Do
he
you
has a
need-
right to have an input.
Do you need internet? I think we have internet, it's just gonna be a little slow.
If not, let me know.
Can I ask you, like on most subdivisions, typically, it's standard or typical, your newer ones, there is a one entry, only one entrance, isn't that kind of standard on your planned developed ones?
That's what the developers want,
Okay.
typically. Some cities won't allow it because of fireman issues. And that can be addressed by having a slightly larger entrance, so it's not just 2 lanes, it's, 3 lanes with, it's 2 lanes, but big shoulders on the side so that people, emergency vehicles can get by. Actually, residents prefer it. They feel like it's a little safer. You can see who's coming and going, and if something happens in the back, there's only one way they're going out. So residents do prefer that.
Okay, since we're concerned with the fire department, and I was in the fire department, I wanna ask you, how close are these homes allowed to be to each other? Who decides that? We do or you do?
So your current ordinance states 10 feet setback. That's what your current ordinance says.
From house to house?
No, from lot line.
From lot
From-
line to lot to house.
No, I don't know how close a house is gonna be.
So that would be 20 feet.
Current.
Cause my daughter
Most
lives in Roanoke
neighborhoods-
and their houses are on top of each other. Cause if one starts, they're all
Right.
gonna burn. Right.
Most neighborhoods now have a setback of 5 to 8 feet. We might have to entertain something closer than the 10-foot setback on each side because we're losing the 9 lots. We haven't even talked to our
Cause you're building homes in hardy plank. I mean,
they're cement board. They are fire resistant.
they are.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
20-year guarantee. The paint on that is porcelain that has to be cured in a very specific way. It's not like the kind in my first house, where every 3 years it swells. That stuff is outlawed. So,
For the record, my house is entirely of this material.
yes.
Yeah, my house will.
Well, the house that I showed you in the packet in Austin for $362,000, it's all that hardy plank, cementous fiber board.
It won't get you any more insulation value. The insulation has to come from the insulation.
Right.
It's not insulated, but it is very fire resistant.
Sir, on the annexation, you don't have to adjust the subdivision, or that's really worded out.
just a subdivision. So, is your internet not?
Well, here's the map. What do you want to see?
Well, I was wanting to kind of show the council where the plumbing was, but basically, we have a water and sewer line that is on Alligator that kind of doglegs around the school. And so, sorry, I can't do it from memory, but
Can you
Sewer
turn
line
on?
does run right in the middle of that property, because it's been damaged multiple times and backed up to my house, so. It's
Yeah,
in the middle of that. property.
right. Well, the one that this subdivision would use actually runs, and if I remember correctly, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, Frank, but I think it goes down Pecan. Is that correct?
That one to the north, I believe.
The
Oh,
sewer
the north one.
connection,
It's the Oak.
the main is on Oak. The water main would be on Plum.
Okay. And so that's in the sewer line. The water, I think we're okay on. Is that
That's true. The water, I think we're okay on.
the sewer line? I believe that's a 6-inch from memory. And you correct me if I'm wrong.
That was correct.
So really, to answer y'all's question, we don't have to go that far to connect. And so, because the sewer line already comes up to Alligator.
Now, I will say that we do, Frank and I have been talking about our infrastructure in that area in terms of the wastewater collection system. We want to camera it. We want to evaluate that system before you connect to see whether or not it's feasible. If it's not, we're going to have to talk a different line or an upgrade, which is something we're planning anyway. When we talk CDBG grants or any other kind of grants, we're planning ahead for that. But there's a lot of planning that goes into this. So the faster that we start talking about this now, the better off we are.
And the utilities would include the plumbing and the sewer lines in your streets or underneath your streets, paid for by the developer,
Yes,
not paid for by the city of Granger. So they're going to have taps that they're going to have to spend money on just to tap into our stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes, but we're not paying for the plumbing that's going on underneath this subdivision.
So the sewer line that's currently in that field that runs from my house to Oak to the P-Out is only about this far.
That's not where we can tap into. It's not big enough.
When y'all start developing,
Oh,
the farmers have hit it multiple times, believe me. I mean, it's not very deep.
so we'll need to know that.
So we'll have to fix it. We'll have to fix it.
So it's right there, just so everybody knows. It's been violated before.
So we'll fix it.
So go back, the connection, water connection is down Plum?
It
Is
is.
that what you said?
Yeah, the 6-inch line dead ends right there.
And
Every
the
single house.
water, the sewer is on
Every single
Oak?
house.
Yes. There's
Okay.
a,
Water
the
tap,
tap
sewer
ends
tap,
right there.
feed.
So you're
On
talking
every
about connecting, if you
They'll
do a
be
single
paying
entrance,
us.
it goes straight in from Oak,
Yeah.
correct?
No. we
So
don't have-
I'm assuming that part of this would also be consideration of bringing possible water line from Plum down to that area and maybe finding a mutual working arrangement where the city doesn't bear that full burden possibly. And connecting those in because
You got another issue too, right along Alligator Road there. There's also a 2-inch gas line that runs back to the drug treatment center.
Which side is that?
It's on,
Right.
it's
The
on
west
the west
side?
side.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Mike at Athens was reminding me this morning to tell you, you need to call marketing at Athens
Okay.
to share your plans with them.
Okay.
So
We had not even considered gas until I saw the census data and saw that most of your homes are on gas. So that is something that was on my list.
Yeah. But the impact is right there on the west side of Alligator, we've got a water line, a gas line, and a sewer line, all within close proximity of each other.
And the gas up here is, I've got it in my home. It's nice to have. So I don't know how.
Do you think that's a selling point for your customers?
I do. I do. And as long as they don't have to retrofit pipe and increase it and, cause a great amount of money, I definitely do. We had talked about the developer pulling the lines to address your concern, pulling the lines under Alligator and paying for that and not having the city pay for that. We would very much like to be able to do that, obviously before the road's fixed, so that we can do a cut through. Boring under is $200,000. Slicing it down the middle is very cheap. But that is something that we had worked into our numbers, the cost to pull those utility lines. So the only burden that's on the city is your capacity. And that's why we need to ensure that we've reserved the OUEs.
And to answer your question about the utilities, and Frank can back me up on this, but you remember last March I presented to City Council the cammering of our wells and the new pump that went in. We know our capacity is sufficient to serve this. We also know that we have the capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. I think we would have to add another 100, best guess, before we would start drawing board on another facility.
That was one of the first questions we asked before we even purchased the property. And we were told it was right over 200 LUEs available at that point. And so far our engineer has indicated that the 6-inch pipe is going to be sufficient. We still don't know if we're gonna need a pump station in the, on the far east side, because there is a slope that goes down, so.
Right, because of the floodplain.
Right, and so, a gravity fed line, you want it to go out, but in this case, it's not going to, so. Well, that'll be an additional expense.
Well, does anybody else have any questions as far as?
I would like to make a comment about the garden homes. I know that in Georgetown, they're, right off of Booty's Road and Williams Drive, there's a lot of really nice houses back to the south of Williams Drive. And in that community there, I have friends that live over there in the garden home section, which is right in amongst a bunch of beautiful homes. And those garden homes are really, really nice. And I would think that they should be able to have the ability to try to recoup what they're losing off that front end by doing some things of that nature. I'm certain that the millennials and the young people that are willing to move out here, one, because they'll have a gig internet access, and it will be huge to bring people. We're going from a 1-horse town to a 1-gig town with ZocNet.
Which Leander, by the way, doesn't have, and I need to talk to you about that.
I mean, it is a huge thing that we've got coming to the city of Granger, and it's already, I'm getting connected Friday. So it is something that the young people will pay to come out here and live and be in a community where they can put their children in a school where they know a teacher and they know other children in the school, and they have the small town feel, because I would move my kids, if I had them, out of the city of Austin. I would not want them in the big schools with the gangs and the problems that exist there. We've got a beautiful little community and a great little school, and there's no reason in the world why young people wouldn't want to move their families here and commute to town. A lot of the young people work from home, and when they've got ZocNet and high-speed internet, they can move here.
One of the beautiful ideas about doing a master plan community is the notion of having the flexibility, what the market is dictating, to change things up. But it's really nice to be able to have, your 25-year-old kid and his new wife move into the same neighborhood as you, but in a smaller home. And then on the flip side, have your parents move into a garden home. And now everyone's there. And then, when I need a garden home, I'm not leaving the neighborhood. I'm moving down the street.
The babysitter's down the street. I mean, it's a great win-win situation. And I see it in the community of Georgetown, and it works just fine. Those are beautiful. And I've been inside them. So I know that you can have that garden home scenario and nice houses in a subdivision close to each other.
If I can throw a little deal in there, I've done some research because I don't do this for a living. A lot of developers like to put in a lot of box hedges, things like that. It's from what I've heard, it's better to get to have very little landscaping and just have a single tree, because the box hedges in 10 years die.
2 years back.
Okay. And so basically, it ends up making the whole community look really run down, whereas a single, maybe pecan, and I know they cost more. Do y'all anticipate that y'all would be able to put in maybe a single tree in each home, of maybe a longer term tree instead of a fast growing? And I know they're not going to bloom, but in 20 years, we have a lot of pecans in Granger, a lot of pecans.
So is that your preference?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing that out there because you could probably argue almost every house has a pecan.
Not pecan, live oak.
Live oak.
And if you don't believe they grow in black dirt, you can come look at mine at my house.
Listen, if they grow in my rock, then
either one of those. And I guess just for my personal preference, because I have gone through the neighborhoods that I know a lot of cities do point systems. And basically they're like, hey, I get 10 points for a box hedge. Let's put 100 of them in. I would rather have nothing and a tree
Again, it goes to the sustainability. That
Yes.
word really means something to us. We want it to take care of itself and age beautifully. So that's very important to us.
Is there anything on the plot right now that you feel that you need from the city to go back to your planner that you would like clarified from the council?
The single entry versus double.
Mhm.
She would like to have that clarified, because the land planner
Right.
needs one or the other.
And I need to know exactly the right of way that you're asking for.
I can't give you the
I know.
exact answer tonight, but
I know,
we'll
not
work on that.
But, yeah.
And if I could ask, and I know you heard, we're going to have a special meeting on Friday.
Friday.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't give you a lot of time, but if y'all have some questions that you could maybe scramble them together and we can throw you on that
Okay.
Friday meeting.
He needs that information. If there's things you need by tomorrow at about 2:00, does that work for you?
That's fine.
So if there's things that don't
No
come out of
pressure.
this.
No pressure.
Friday, 1:00, tomorrow. I'm used to that.
We have to, for public meetings purposes, we have to have it listed.
So let me ask you then, if we get back on the agenda, can we get an approval?
I mean, you can give them a preliminary
You
approval.
need an approval to proceed,
Yes.
and you don't want to proceed without annexation.
We can do that tonight. That's on the agenda for a vote. If you want to proceed with annexation, that would just be a vote tonight.
And I think by moving forward, but to start to nail down the lot. And so if we were to go to the single, and sorry, I'll get it in front of me, the single entrance, and then as Andrew proposed, it would end up actually being two, because you would be able to come in here and then go out over there.
Yes, so
and so-
that would be about one lot, and
Or could we put it like maybe back here?
I would think you could put it in that floodplain.
Yeah, I would think so too.
And
that might be that actually off of the cul-de-sac might be a premium lot. So
Oh, okay.
we may not want to do it there. But so we would be talking about one lot, which the lots are going to run about $30,000 to $40,000 a lot.
Okay.
So we're not against that.
the only reason is if, let's say, you added on, let's say you
Yes.
went north in 2 years.
Yes,
Then we would have the ability to have an in and out.
100%.
And so then I think that would be very helpful for the city, just for long-term sustainability purposes, to have an entry and an exit through an additional neighborhood.
Is there consensus from the council on that?
Yeah.
It's a private drive, isn't it?
No.
Not that back corner right there, but it's a private drive.
No, we're just talking about having a
Dead end
access if someone ever sells it.
Oh, for future.
Yes.
Yeah, it would just be a dead end street with like little placards on it that say dead end.
Yeah, they say this is nothing wrong with that, isn't it?
Right.
Or land, right.
What you've already said, right?
And then, I threw this out there, but I want to know that the council is okay with it. Just because I threw it out there, I want to know y'all. I'm okay with the mixed lots and sizes. Now, if y'all want them all the same size, can anybody give a comment on that?
I'm for the mixed lots, and I'm also for the garden homes,
Yeah.
because that shows more affordability to some people.
It's all just the same, but not like.
Yeah, I don't like rows of houses personally. Okay.
So we're totally fine with,
Mixed lots, is that
right, we would like to keep it at 40 for the possibility of garden homes. Like I already told you, I don't even think we can get the 2-car garage on 40, so we were already planning on,
Being about
pushing the
50.
50s. Some of those lots on the back cul-de-sac and over by the park, those would be ones that we would probably offer at almost 60 foot, if not 60
like on the
foot.
back? And so the fronts or the sides would be, some of those would be 40s.
Yes.
Or 45s or something along those lines.
She's saying they're gonna be bigger.
Right, those would be bigger unless we decided to make kind of a garden, one of the phases. We wouldn't like wall off the garden homes. It would just be part of like phase 2 on this side, we're offering garden.
Right. So essentially, but the garden homes aren't going to come if
Right
it sells
away.
like crazy though.
Right,
Okay.
right. That'll come in the next development.
Right, and to clarify something else, we could do the subdivisions in stages. You don't have to subdivide the whole thing right now. You can just do the subdivision plat process on the first quarter or the first half. And then at a later date and time come and do another subdivision plat that would go before council for a vote.
One of the things that I think would be helpful for both parties, and I could be by myself here, is actually getting with the utility department and putting together some cost of what that connection is going to be. For bringing the water down from Plum Street, kind of getting some of those costs from our side, what those costs is. Whether it's better for us to have a sewer line that runs down Alligator. Put some thought into this and actually get some numbers put together to see where we can work with the developer to ease some of that burden on the city.
But
Because my fear with this is not going to be in 2 years, you are going to be looking at the next development. Growth is coming. As everybody around that has been around me has heard. On the 4 corners in my neighborhood. Yeah. On my 4 corners, none of the people are there are longtime residents. They're all from somewhere else.
Marcy has stated that the developer and that the owners of this property would be willing to assist and or pay for the connections.
And that's what, get with Frank and figure out what we think those costs will be so that as we go through. I like this
cost, not ours.
Right. The way it stands right now, if we can do a cut through on Alligator Road, we worked it into our numbers to pull the water line down a block and the wastewater line and water line over under Alligator Road. And that comes at a cost to us on the west side of town. It's a little more expensive, but we run numbers like $100 a linear foot for water, and $250 to $300 a linear foot for wastewater. You guys are probably half of that because you have nice soil and you don't have to get out the jackhammer. Nonetheless, it will come at a significant cost, and the developer is already planning on covering that, provided we can get the flexibility that we need in the development.
And I think we need, mixed lots. I like that look. I like the one entrance. I think it needs to be a wider entrance so you have fire ability. I'd like something that is, and I'm going to use this term, and it's probably not a good term, but I like foo-foo entrances.
Yeah.
I think it defines it. I like the trees because in 10, 15 years, those people have something in their front yard and backyard, and those looks, hedges die. People don't water them and they're dry and they die. At least a tree you can maybe sustain.
Right.
Is this gonna be a home association neighborhood?
Honestly, it's going to depend on what builders we choose and how they want to set it up. And that's why it's really important to us that we're building with quality materials, so that we prefer a homeowners association because it just keeps the values up. So that's something we're going to push for.
So if you do that, wouldn't it be just more fruitful to go straight lawns and let people put trees in if they want?
It certainly would.
For you
Yes.
and everybody else, that I'm gonna buy a home, maybe I want a pine.
Right.
But a starter home is going to have money to put in there.
Oh, to put a tree in.
Well, it's kind of like when you go when you kind of go through and pick the cabinets and they say, oh, that that cabinet you love is an upgrade. If you want a tree up there or an additional tree, maybe we're doing a tree every other lot.
Right.
And so if you want an additional tree in the back, it's $500. That's nothing when you're,
Right,
putting together.
that's what I'm saying, if it was all just lawn to start with, at least anybody can do a little bit. They're gonna have a home association, which is gonna say where the tree can be to protect the cement walkways and the driveways and that type of thing.
Marcy, are you guys planning on fencing the subdivision?
And what kind, is it gonna be wood privacy fence or the concrete type?
Typically along the sides, and I don't even know, we're probably not gonna fence back, 'cause it's gonna get, blown over. But on the north and the south side would be that 6-foot privacy fence. Along the front, we can discuss.
Okay, and, the privacy fence, and pardon my ignorance, but the maintenance of that, will that fall under the HOA?
Yeah, home association usually takes care of keeping the quality of the neighborhood, which includes fencing, where they put their trash cans.
Right. I just want to make sure that the city's not going to be, I don't know these things, so.
What are y'all planning on doing with the streets?
They maintain. We don't even know.
Marcy,
She's taking notes.
what are you tentatively putting down for street housing?
Your HOA will be maintaining that fence, I would presume.
Yes, assuming there is an HOA. So that is negotiations that happen with the home builders. It is something we want and we're gonna push for.
Okay.
If for some reason they come back and they say, this market really won't
Doesn't
sustain an HOA, or, our target market buyers won't play, then we're willing to put in some deed restrictions that prohibit motorhome, boats, a car can't be parked in the street for more than 2 days. We're willing to do that because it's very important to us that it remains quality.
Okay.
So what was those streets from the land planner, I believe, they're standard for residential developments, and I think it's 18, maybe it's 22 feet, but that's a standard.
22 is the standard.
Okay, so it's 22 feet.
Is there?
So,
go ahead.
One of the things, if you have an HOA, I'd like to make sure that the parking on the streets is limited.
So,
and I know with the small lot.
We agree.
But it allows free flow of traffic too.
Yes.
And it keeps
Emergency vehicles.
everything smooth.
Exactly.
Those are things I'd like is try
Especially
to
if you're
keep
gonna have
parking.
one entrance. I mean, if you're gonna have one entrance, and you're gonna have to limit parking on the street in some fashion. Because if you have to get an ambulance.
Right.
Or a fire truck in there.
A lot of these developments that have 40s and 50s, they only allow one overnight vehicle. A vehicle can only be on the street for one overnight, and then it gets ticketed by the HOA officer.
And if you have an HOA, that works good. If it isn't there,
Yes.
then you start getting into problems with sometimes.
We pretty much don't have too much in the way of parking ordinances right now.
Yeah.
Right now being the key word.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying, though, if you're in extendo, you really don't have to worry about that if you don't have HOA, because the city can put ordinances in place that discuss that. So you
But
don't
if the
have to
H-
worry.
I like HOA because if the HOA is ticketing their own members,
Sure.
They'll have their
city
own
staff
board.
don't have,
Absolutely.
and it keeps the city from being the ones that gets a black eye. I don't like HOAs, but I do like HOAs from this side.
The HOAs help maintain value, property value. But
Is there anything else that you specifically feel you need addressed tonight on this matter so that you can get back to your platters? And since I'm not a specialist at this, I want to make sure we're touching all the points so that we're not nitpicking, bouncing back and forth and saying, please move this lot to the right. And I want to make sure we address all the questions as best we can tonight.
let me just go through my little checklist. You'll tell me how much the right of way is. I guess we do need to talk about the lot setbacks because again, the city ordinance says 10 feet on each side.
Okay.
Can I add to that? I've been telling this council for a year and a half, we really need to address those. I think the city was built way before this zoning ordinance was adopted. And it's sort of like a new city plan on an old city. And I really think we really need to talk about it. I mean, it's just your tolerance, but with the understanding that this new generation who's going to be buying homes don't want a whole lot of yard to maintain, and probably be okay with a 10-foot separation between wall to wall.
That's what the other neighborhoods, that's what they're looking at when they're driving around deciding if they're gonna go to Gerald or Maynard.
And I'm good with doing planned subdivisions with less than the 10 foot. I don't think it works for all of our city, but if you're having a planned subdivision, I think that's negotiation. I like.
And it can be specific.
Millennials are their own little group.
Right, yes. And this can be specific to this division.
So if we could clarify that, and 5 feet setback, so to answer, I think Linda made the question earlier, that would be 10 feet between each home.
Between wall and wall.
Or actually, I would like to know your opinion. What is
Well,
your?
you can hear your neighbor fart if you want to know it.
Okay.
That's how close it is.
Yeah,
So-
you can hear me.
So would you be? How would you feel about 8?
Huh?
How would you feel about 8 feet? That would be
16 feet.
That'd be better.
16 feet. Is
Yeah,
16 feet?
I ain't lying.
Is that something that is doable, or?
Yeah, I mean,
So that would be 8-foot setback?
right. I think that is doable. I'm a little concerned about the garden homes. Depending on, some people may want, a 900 square foot or 1,300 square foot.
But would that not be a second phase? And so the potential to come back to council and say, hey, this row is going to be garden homes, would y'all be willing to?
It would be our preference to go ahead and at least get a preliminary plat on the entire site approved. Okay. Because when we're trying to market this to home buyers and to home builders, they want to see the whole thing and what it's going to look like. And so with the, we preliminary plat phase 2 and phase 3 with the option, we're going to reassess what the market is telling us, and we may come back before final plat and adjust some of those with proof as to why we needed to adjust it.
Well, Linda, would you be all right with maybe if they presented us a plan with maybe 30% of the houses with a 5 or a 10-foot separation for garden homes?
Sure.
The garden homes are closer together.
And I'm sorry, I just threw a percentage out there because I don't know, but I know y'all are going to have to do a little bit of math to determine what works and what doesn't.
Could we say for 40-foot lots that we allow the 5-foot, and for everything above 40, we're going to do 8-foot? Because we don't anticipate, like I said, we're not going to have more than 50% 40-foot lots.
Between the two.
And just to think a little differently, the closer the houses are, that's probably going to mean more square footage, which is more tax dollars.
Absolutely.
And so it's in higher density. When we have higher density, that means once this development is finished out and the city owns the water and sewer lines underneath, we're going to be maintaining it. And so higher density actually is cheaper for the city to maintain. And so those are some, I wanted to throw them out there.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
So anyways, yes, Rosie.
I have a question because this is the black lead soil. And I remember when they built the elementary building, that they had to go so far and then they put the leader underneath because of the shifting and this, that, and the other.
I know where you're going with this.
Are they aware of
I will ask. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. It's a very.
They dug it, I kid you not, they dug a swimming pool deep in my associate.
Yeah.
I've already had mine leveled.
How,
So-
how far deep until you hit bedroom?
About 9 feet. 9 feet.
Deeper.
Yeah, so, we went sometimes 14 and 15 foot deep in that area.
If I can-
Your builders are gonna have to do engineering studies for the type of foundation
Yeah.
appropriate for that area.
What, were you thinking of,
Right, that's
cement?
included in our engineering
Right.
Were you
budget,
thinking of
but if we're
cement
having to put down, the anchors, that obviously is gonna affect the.
Right. It does
Were you thinking
affect
of
because.
cement or pier and beam?
Oh, no, smash.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
you definitely will have to at least put 4 to 5 foot of that good road base before you can put a cement on there and have it last.
Didn't you do that to Mama
Under the footprint of the home,
Yes,
this way.
yeah, I would
And so
definitely.
that's just something that y'all probably need to be aware of in case you weren't. The soil out here is, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the actual technical term, but it does move with rain, so it shrinks.
It's black gumbo.
It's, black gumbo, but like my house,
It has a higher clay content.
it does, it has a very
If
high
you
clay.
tell- If you tell your engineers black gumbo, they'll know exactly what you're talking about.
My house has an 18-inch slab on it, and I have cracks in my walls. The slab is fine, but that does tell you the house actually does move.
Marcy, I have a question. Were you planning on putting kiosks for mail? Have you talked to the post office?
We haven't talked to the post office, but
Everybody in town
Yes.
has to go to the post office and get a post office box because they don't deliver mail or
And they
anything.
have-
Now, there are a few people that have set up post office, mailboxes,
Yeah, they
but it's a
set
big
them up.
ordeal to get one. You've got to,
Go to Bartlett.
go to Bartlett and get them to put the pole and then you can finally put your box on it and they'll ultimately finally deliver, but.
Yeah, the reason, and Jill makes a very good point on that. The reason is towns under, I believe, 1,500 people, the post office does not require them to deliver.
okay, I'm glad you said that because I did not know that.
And so, she's very right. Everybody goes to the PO box, and so it would be something to do due diligence on. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
Have your
Bartlett,
planner dude start, thinking about where you put them.
Maybe that's.
is there any other questions to assist with?
Yeah, we would lose 2 more lots on either side of it to do that, so,
Yes.
What sides,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, AJ. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They'll agree.
The thing of with the mailbox, now because Bartlett was short, then they deliver, that's why you see so many in the yards now.
I got you. Okay, so that's a new
You
change.
may have that, yes.
Yeah.
No, the one on
You may have
the,
that change
the
on
mail,
the choice.
the mailboxes, they will only deliver to you if you're on the direct mail route.
Yeah.
Like if they go right by your house already, you're on the route, they will deliver. Other than that, you can set up at someone else's house or something like that. But your only option is if you're on the route.
I don't think so, Monica, because
That's what,
now-
when I got mine, that's what it was.
Because now, like,
You drop it.
like the sales, they all have a lot of pieces that are stocked. They're all in them in their yards because, I asked why. And they said because Bartlett sorts the mail now, Granger does not. So Bartlett delivers. And so that's why you have a lot of people with the mailboxes in their yards.
We would prefer not to do a mailbox in the yard because that's just one more thing that ages and gets knocked down and battered up.
The mail centers work better.
I'd rather see the kiosk.
Yes. And so will the post office deliver to a kiosk?
I would imagine they'd prefer to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's much quicker.
New subdivisions are now
Yeah.
required by the postal service to have
Yeah.
mail kiosks.
Okay,
So,
there you go.
anybody else, as best you can, if we can get as much of this out, to please, if you have any concerns, any thoughts, please throw it out there.
Street lights, who's gonna be responsible for those?
We will install them and they will go into the city right away, just like we build and install the road and all the utilities, we pay for all that. And then we gift it to y'all and it's built to your specifications, so it's gonna be nicer than probably most of the streets you have. No offense.
No, I
No.
guarantee you.
And if at all possible, I know this sounds ridiculous, but if they could be LED, that would be fantastic. Because that will save the city money long-term, a lot of money.
Yeah, and we like the low, starry night, low emission ones.
Yes.
So that you can still see the stars.
Yes, no, that would, and you mean the ones for light control?
Yes.
Yes.
So where are they saying they're gonna hook up
Do I need to
the sewer?
include all this in a motion?
Where are they gonna hook up the sewer?
I don't believe
It's on
so. The
right
reason
across.
is she's going to present us. a
And then it's
plan.
gonna go down Oak instead
let me
of straight down
clarify.
to the
Hey,
sewer
Andrew.
plant?
We're doing a feasibility study. If there's a line that goes, so if they cross over Oak and then come
Go by
straight
what
shot
Frank,
back.
go by what Frank wants.
Huh?
Go by what Frank wants.
And I think.
Do we need to include all of these thoughts into a motion? I'm
I
ready.
think, I mean, you've written them down, I think, because if you add them, if y'all do that, then what we'll do is when she brings us our plat, back, you know, she's got our notes, so I think we should be good with, one other question, and you're not going to be able to get this plat by Friday, obviously, that's not going to happen.
When is your next meeting?
Well, our next meeting is going to be, Friday, but that's our special meeting. But we will have another one the second Monday of March.
12th.
March 12th, thank you. And so if y'all would like, y'all could be on the agenda March 12th with the revised plat.
I guess what I would like to be able to do is go to P&Z. And then, I mean, you want me to come back here and then go to P&Z and then come back here two times?
Let me clarify for you. No, we're gonna do the two track, the simultaneous
Oh,
track. So the next step for me would be to get you in touch with P&Z.
okay.
And the next thing that we need to do, I think if you want to entertain a motion for either or both of these items, it would be to go ahead and start setting our public hearing dates. And they have to be at least 2 weeks apart.
You want to do the first one and then
Yeah.
we'll do the second one?
Yeah. Well, really, the first one is just a motion to proceed. The annexation track, it's the second agenda item. We'll have to, agree to annex and then set those public hearing dates in that course of that conversation or that motion. I'm sorry, say it again?
I know, you're living in the dirt, who's gonna oppose it?
Oh, well,
It's for
no,
the
it's a
Granger
public
City.
hearing for the city of Granger.
Yeah.
City of Granger, we'd have to
Take it on.
post it on City Hall and on our website and in the paper, and anybody that wanted to come and talk about that development would be, coming to talk to us in those public hearings with regards to the annexation.
I would just put
May
on
I
this one.
make a suggestion that for Friday, what I could do is in the form of some
Verbal.
type of agreement, put all the bulleted items that we've all agreed on, basically what I'm going to give to my land planner and say, make it look like this. And I can bring that before you on Friday, and then you guys can, you know, agree, oh yes, Marcy included everything, and then I'll give it to the land planner and get before P&Z as quickly as possible,
Yeah, that would be fine, and that way you can talk to the owners, and if y'all want to add something else, then we can just throw you onto the agenda on Friday.
Well, can I bring a motion? Are y'all ready? I would like to bring a motion on regular agenda item 4A that we proceed with the development of the eastern border of North Alligator Road, legally described in Williamson County Tax Appraisal Records as AW0072, repeated AW0072. And to include that we put Ms. Marcy Cannon on the agenda on Friday to present to the council a bulleted information packet with regards to all of the things that we've discussed this evening to make sure that we're all on point.
Second.
All in favor? All right. All opposed by the same? Seeing none, motion carries.
We're so excited. Okay, that's what I'll do.
Regular agenda item B, discuss, consider possible action concerning property annexation request for land located on the eastern border of North Alligator, legally described as Williamson County Tax Appraisal Records, AW0072, repeated, Botello Court, acres 26, requested by Marcy Cannon. All right.
When would we be able to have these public, how?
Quickly?
Yes, sir.
We could have the first one on the 16th if you wanted to. And then 16th of
Friday the
February,
16th?
Friday. If you wanted to have that, we could have one at the next council meeting, or we could even schedule a special hearing to have that.
So we could do one
On the
Friday and then on the 12th.
We don't have to.
For the annexation, no.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry, that's right. That's right, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll have different public hearings in between all of this,
Okay,
but for the annexation tract, we just have to have the two.
so, I'm sorry, I can ask the land planner if they can have it done by Friday, but most likely they can't. But
That doesn't affect your annexation.
That doesn't,
No.
yeah, because that's more of the subdivision and the planning process. It's a good faith agreement that we're saying, we hear you and this is what we want to do. And so that could be just an attachment to how we're moving forward with the development.
And y'all might be able to have that by our March meeting,
The land.
March
plan.
12th.
Yes.
So, which would be the second hearing.
But she's gonna bring all these points on her deal on Friday.
Anybody have comments on that? Go ahead.
The only thought pattern is if you're having a public hearing and if people come, having something to show them, like a land plan, would be really nice. That's my only comment is,
Well, and we would.
We could
we'll
show
have one
them
by the
what we were presented tonight and the bulletin of all the things that are gonna be put into the one that's gonna
and
reappear
then
on
have the next
the
public hearing
12th.
with more.
I mean, if they are willing to come on the 16th and they're that interested in it, they'll come back on the 12th and say something else about it.
She'd offer her.
Honestly, from just a visual perspective, the main change you're gonna see is for the road widening, which we just found out about. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be the main visual thing that you see. You're not gonna be able to tell the difference between a 40 and a 45 or a 48-foot lot, so. Yeah.
I'll make a motion on regular agenda item 4B that we accept the annexation request by the developer, by Marcy Cannon, and that we set public hearings, the first being on Friday, the 16th of February, and the second public hearing, on March the 12th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor? All right. All opposed by the same? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank y'all so much for your time.
Thank you for
You're so excited. It's gonna be fun.
Miss Marcy, there's a bunch of notes on here that you might want to take that with you
I'll
that,
take a picture.
yeah. Okay, that'll be fun.
Thank you.
Marcy, be careful going home and watch out for deer.
Yes.
I live in the country.
Yeah, they're out now.
They're deer are
Big-
bad enough to if you want.
If y'all don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to regular agenda item C, discuss, consider possible action concerning amendments to the personnel policy to include Christmas Eve and Good Friday as city holidays, requested by Andrew Bill, city administrator.
It was not included in the policy that we approved, so the personnel policy just listed the holidays at whatever day they fell on. And then if it was on a weekend, then it gave the authority to the city administrator to adjust. But we didn't see Christmas Eve and Good Friday, and I wanted to add it.
How many
I agree.
holidays do y'all have now?
I don't remember, honestly.
Because I tried to find it on the website, I couldn't find it. What
It's
day is
not on the
Christmas Eve?
website.
They're not excessive.
It's in personnel policy.
Week, but it's the day before the 25th. So
I don't think anybody ought to work on
I mean-
Friday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
This past year it fell on Saturday.
I
No,
think
Sunday.
we've been
I'm trying
approving in the
to
past, it's just
remember,
not
I
a
think it's
policy.
10, I might be wrong, and then the county observes 14 holidays.
It might be 12 with the added 2 days, one for Thanksgiving and one for Christmas, but I'm not sure of the total holidays. I haven't seen the holiday list for this year.
We appreciate you, Frank.
I'll make a motion on regular agenda item 4C that we include Christmas Eve and Good Friday as a city holiday.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, 3, 4, all opposed, and 2 against. All right, motion carries. Regular agenda item D, discuss, consider possible action concerning February 2018, a Black History Month proclamation requested by City Council member Monica Sturgeon.
Okay, this month is Black History Month, and I just requested that we put this on here so we can honor our citizens who are very instrumental in developing our town. We kind of have a melting pot here of different people, but I feel that we should honor the members of the Black History Month.
That's your motion?
Yes, that's my motion.
Second. Okay,
All
go
in
ahead.
favor? All right, all opposed, seeing none, motion carries. Regular agenda item E, discuss, consider possible action concerning ribbon cutting ceremony and dedication of the East Pecan Street Bridge, requested by Andrew Bill, City Administrator.
Have you got a date that works best?
That is really up to you guys.
Yeah, I'll throw this out there. I think at least a Saturday is probably so people can show up. The majority of people are not going to be able to make it during the week.
I think you ought to do it after Easter too. It's so cold outside these days.
Okay, when you cut the ribbon, the road may be open already though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to have to hold that road from being
no.
not open.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
please.
we can do a ribbon cutting. It's just a formality and a celebration
I'm good for Saturday.
of an
All the hard
improvement,
work.
hard work and an improvement, a much needed improvement to that section of town. 'Cause that bridge, I can't speak to how long it's been closed, but I think probably 10 years. Yes.
I have a suggestion. We could use the Black Heritage, well, it's not Black Heritage, it's a Heritage Memorial, but it's not until July. When, they come and they do it, and it's to honor, or it's in memory of all the Black people who have passed away. And then they also honor somebody who's made accomplishments or whatever. And so I think that would be a good time for ribbon cutting, which it is on Saturday. I'm not sure of the exact date, but it's not until July.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, that's down the road quite a bit though.
Yeah, that's too.
Yeah, we probably, because then people would be like, why are we doing a ribbon cutting? It's been open 6 months. No, I appreciate the suggestion though. I think, I'll just throw this out there, maybe 2 weeks. Would anybody be okay with that? I'm sorry, I'm looking up at your calendar up there, so.
It's in March.
Yeah,
2 weeks
sometime.
would be the 3rd, the 10th, the 17th of March.
March 3rd.
March 10th.
I would not recommend the 10th. For me, that's a busy time.
Would 17th work for anyone?
I think the 17th would be better for everybody because your weather should start changing.
Yeah, I think agreed.
Is everybody okay with the 17th?
Yeah.
Motion on regular agenda item 4E that we set the date for the ribbon cutting ceremony as March 17th, 2018 at
Time.
10 o'clock, 10 a.m.?
Yeah, it's because if we get too late, people are off to their ball games. If we're too early, people are still sleeping. So, 9 or 10.
10.
10, is there 10 good for everybody? Yeah, 10 o'clock.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
No.
What's up?
You
No.
okay?
I can't be there, and I don't want to vote
Oh,
saying that
okay.
I'm
Okay, that's
in
good.
favor of not
So,
being there.
all in favor, so we got 4, okay. 4, and
One abstain.
Yeah, 1 abstain. All right. Motion carries. Give me 1 second. I apologize. I'm putting this in my calendar.
10:30.
And you said 10?
Yes, sir.
All right. Regular agenda item F, discuss, consider possible action concerning creating a new employee position for grant administration and Texas Main Street project requested by City Council Member Monica Strajonic.
Okay, I asked that this be put on the agenda so we could actually bring Miss Catherine Norris on full-time. I don't know how many of you are aware of it, but she is extremely instrumental in moving Granger forward. She has done a lot for us, and she's done everything from answer phones to take out trash and everything in between there. And I know that she has worked diligently, and I just feel that she'd be a big asset, and other people are looking at hiring her. So before we lose her, I think we need to snatch her. Does anyone have anything to say?
I agree, and we've got a huge application that is going to be available to us in February this year. That is the onset of our Main Street project application, at which point in time when we commence making that application, we have to have this person hired anyway.
And
Go ahead, Hugh.
My only concern on this, she does a lot of work in the office that is not grant related. She does a tremendous amount of stuff in our office that is not grant related. I would be more inclined to create a position that is not grant related.
For the Texas Main Street program, it has to be grant related.
I understand.
But
she also has to shift her to having most of that role as grant versus anything in the office too. We have not, out of the grants that have been applied for, we have not received a lot of. And we need, it's something we may look at, someone coming in and doing more grants, in my personal opinion. The RRCD happened because of Jordan Fingal. And I think that's something that we need her working as staff because she does so much for the city so that we can budget. I don't know if a grant position is a position that is going to be fitting for this. That's my personal opinion.
The Texas Main Street program, which we all committed to pursue, requires a grant position.
And yes, for clarification, I believe that was 50% of the time. And if I'm wrong on that,
as I understood it, 50% of the time had to be devoted to the Texas Main Street project for 2 years.
okay. So, so on that argument, so the 50% could be as a city staffer. 50% could be I believe we have to give 50% to the grant.
Yes.
She'll 50% to the grant, but she is going to file again for the Texas Historical Commission grant in October, and she's got all these park grants that she's going to be applying for as well. So 50% is a low figure. These park grants are going to be available to us, and we've already got the in-kind paid for by our CBDG money. If you recall, the matching funds for any of this park money that's available has been paid for already. So to not pursue those grants is ridiculous. To not pursue the grants for the Texas Historical Commission is nuts. We need to pursue those. So 50% yes to Main Street program, but additional grants are not going to be 50-50 staffing because she's got other grants to do. And we did not get the THC grants because of the devastation on the coast and where the THC put the money in the year 2018. That's the only reason why we got denied. because they are very proud of the work that we've done on City Hall so far.
And if I can speak, I think what you're, and correct me on, I'm not trying to speak for you, I think that what you're saying is you're wanting to know whether it's a staff position and not.
I prefer to make the title not specific to Grant.
Do you have a suggestion?
I haven't felt it is, Grant-wise, it's been effective for how many we've got.
Do you have a suggestion for a title?
Administrative assistant,
Okay.
I think would be a good title. I think she does a lot of support network across all the departments. You can put into that she works on grants also.
How about administrative coordinator?
Well, I'm going to throw
Is that
this-
going to be acceptable to the Main Street program? Because
to.
what does her title have to be for them? Do you know, Catherine?
For the Main Street program, you have to hire a program director. Typically, that's the one who plans the phases of the program as you execute it, and they also can be writing the grants. Maybe you would be happier with an economic development position, because you've reached a point right now, and I have to tell you, your development coming in is the linchpin for all of that grant money you're saying I haven't brought in yet. And I fully agree with you, okay? They don't send free money in places that aren't growing. She knows this. So you might be happier with an economic development position because the grant development, the funds development there, across the board, is starting to interact compensatory. The program's got to have a director. And as the MDD moves forward with this material, all of that has to work with the TMP. So, speak up, please.
What I had in my notes, what I picked out numbers, so I forgot to say it, was that she was critical in getting as far as we've gotten, and her knowledge. I've done a lot of work with Leander and Georgetown and Liberty Hill. Her knowledge of all of these grant programs is greater than the economic development director. They don't even know or care about grants, but she helped tremendously in what is going to be happening in your city over and over and over.
And I guess it's part of what I'm trying to make a point here is when you put a title on her of grant writer, that doesn't mean a lot. If she's a administrative coordinator or if she is a development coordinator or something along those lines, it creates more of a go-to mentality for people looking at the city. And I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to put a bigger picture here. This isn't, when we say a grant writer, everyone just in the community goes, oh, all she does is grants. That's not what Catherine's doing in our office. It's a much bigger role. And I think when you do a title like that, we're doing both her a disservice, but also the future a disservice. And that's what point I'm trying to make here is that's a very specific title that, in my opinion, we need to change it to give more teeth to the position and where people can look at it and go, here's a go-to person. I'm good with hiring. I don't like the grant title, and I think you need to change that so that we have a person there.
I like program director or program coordinator. Is there any opposition to any of that?
I'm not an outsider, but having an economic director is a higher respect. There's a lot of developers that won't even talk to anyone who's not the economic development director. Also, as far as submitting grants, if she's an administrative assistant or a program director, that doesn't give her the title of the respect to get to the right person, to get the grants done, to talk to the right developer. That's just my opinion.
You need to have somebody in your staff that has that in their title, so that when people come to your community to do business regarding retail growth or private sector growth, they know you've already thought ahead enough to have somebody who can handle those things. So
whatever you call me, I don't care what you call me. But keep that in mind, because all of these things, your town is at a growing phase where all of these things are starting to be connected to each other. And that's really important.
Is this something that we need to call the State of Texas Main Street Project and maybe get clarification on? Or, because if we call her an economic development coordinator, that almost falls under the MDD.
I don't think so.
You don't?
I don't
But Main Street, from my understanding, when they presented and we have that whole conversation, they don't really care what title she holds. All
Okay.
they care about is 50% of her time is dedicated to being over the Main Street program. They don't care if her title is utility director. We've just got to document that her time is 50% dedicated to the Main Street project. That's how I understood it.
I agree.
It sounds to me like economic development director or coordinator would be as a person responsible for grant writing. That would be a job task under her job position. You can call her whatever you want to call her. I mean, her job tasks are given to her or assigned by the city administrator.
Yeah. I just don't like grant title. It doesn't give us a go-to, and it doesn't describe what she's been doing.
I'll make a motion. Can I make a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
On item.
Well, we have questions.
Okay.
How much we should be
Can I
paid?
say something? When I approached Andrew, we really didn't discuss a title for Catherine. Granted, she does a lot of our grant writing and 100 other hats that she wears. I mainly wanted to bring her on board because I realize the importance and the value she has for Granger. And I don't really care what title it is, but I really feel that she benefits us in so many ways, and we need to bring her on board.
Okay, has she been working for the city? Besides,
We've done
grants?
staffing and we've done grant work. So whenever we have a staffing need, if Janine is out and Jerry's not available, Jerry's had surgeries, Jerry has had personal issues, I have had a need to bring somebody in. It's not we're getting to the busy point where I can't keep up if I have to answer phones.
A lot of her salary has been paid for by the grants that we.
And to speak to that a little bit, you know, even when Andrew was out sick, Catherine was there, and so we have been put in a position where we've had to use Catherine a little bit more than maybe we intended, but that's why I think partially it's, you know, we were going to discuss putting her in the next budget, which is, Andrew corrected me earlier today that it was 8 months out, and so, but we are making these payments anyways, and so to be able to bring her into the umbrella.
Do we need to set a salary in the process?
I would recommend we do, and I've made a recommendation for the salary.
Have you got it up there?
Yes, it's right up there. So I'm going to recommend $20 an hour. What that works out to for her take home is about $42 a year. And it's about $5,700 for her medical benefits per year. Keep in mind that we've only got 8 months left in this budget cycle. And what I've done is based my calculations on that. So when I put her in here, we would have to come up for her personal salary for the remainder of this year, if we put her on immediately, is $26,200 for her personal salary. And then we would add a portion of those numbers for her insurance. It wouldn't be the full $5,000 this year. It would only be prorated for those 8 months. The other fees, I think, are kind of nominal. The workman's comp.
$25,000 on the roof.
Yeah, we did.
And to throw this out there, and Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're paying right now her about $1,800 a month.
I don't want to lie. What are we paying?
2,500. Okay, so I'm off.
But that is for staffing and bridge.
Right.
They're charging 2 different hourly rates.
Correct. And so the at 2,500, so you know, if you look at it from that perspective, we're actually going to be saving a little money.
That's right.
And so on that front,
I believe we
we have a question.
I was going to state that also basically her benefits will can be covered basically under my utility position that I have as part-time right now. So no benefits are being paid out. So that could finish out this year.
We are saving money everywhere we can. We're trying to grow money, you know, the Sam's card is an example. Doing investments to grow money for the city and keep costs low is our objective. And I'm trying very hard. I hope that you all see that. But I hope you also recognize with Marcy's addition and Zochnet's addition, I hope you recognize that we are working harder than we did when I first started.
Okay, and I just want to say that Catherine has that go-getter attitude. I mean, she comes in and her expertise and knowledge, if she doesn't know something, she goes and researches it. Because I've asked her several things. She said, I don't know, I'll get back with you. And she does quickly. And I think she has just really moved Granger forward. And having her here will be nothing but an asset. And it's going to help us along the way.
We're going to be busy and we're going to need the staff.
Well, especially if we get development. If this one's successful, it's going to be busy.
So, do you have any more reports you need to show, or I know
only
they're
thing-
all in the packet.
The only thing I was going to say was soft money. I based all of my calculations and how we could fund this position right now through the remainder of this year on hard money. What that means is tax dollars or revenues from utilities. But we do know for a fact from talking with Texas Parks and Wildlife and the CDBG, the CDBG will allow 20% of the award to go for somebody who's administrating the grant award itself. And that can be a staff person. And the same is true for Texas Parks and Wildlife, although I don't know the percentage of the allowable contribution. So there is another opportunity as we get more grants to reduce the tax burden.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I'll make a motion on regular agenda item 4F that we extend an offer to Catherine Norris to be our economic coordinator and make her responsible for the Main Street application, 50% of her time being spent on that project, that she would also encompass economic development, grant administration, as well as office assistant.
Second.
And,
sorry.
Let me finish, I'm
sorry.
sorry. At $20 an hour.
Does it need director or coordinator? You made a comment a minute ago about going to talk to cities.
I only talked to the directors. If I called up and said I need to talk to your economic development director, and you guys said, well, we don't have one, but we have a coordinator. Who else needs to
Perhaps
amend that motion to economic development director.
Second the motion.
All in favor? All right. All opposed?
Yes, sir.
I think you guys made a really great decision. I spend all my time all week in 18 different towns in this rural area. And our company, our whole organization, you guys stand out above the other 17 years Granger, the operation, Andrew and Catherine, the organization, even when you conduct the council meetings. Hands down, a company like ours that is needing to grow fast, and Andrew knows about the names that we've walked away from now because of the staff. Your staff is excellent. Meaning that operation to a company like ours, we would stop anything else. We communities around here, we just walked away from. But because we have to have confidence, almost like Marcy has to her organization, you can't make these things happen in a vacuum, and it's really required. I also want to address being that over the past 20, 30 years, we've probably picked up $500 million in grants, organized, just under 480 some million. I wanted to address you. Grant writing is a long game.
but it takes persistence and consistency from the organization that's going after those things. And it's a slow start, but then it just accelerates. And that's what the path you need to be on. I just want to put that in there because I had to deal with it. And I had a venture capital firm for 15 years, and we spent 80% of our time on that. And having somebody that's it's consistency over time with these little grants. It's just not driving a grant sentence. It's that it's just consistency of the grant life. It's really a talent, a unique talent. Catherine possesses those skills. Talked to her a lot, seen it. So anyway, I think you guys made a great decision. You've been making great decisions from our company's perspective, and we're excited to invest and to be part of. Because we couldn't do it alone. We're working in the community, and you got a group that's really doing well. So I want to applaud you guys and make a great decision.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Motion carried.
I needed to finish that.
And I might add that we didn't hesitate to go see Roger about supporting, and Zocknet, supporting Lake Fest as a major contributor to that event, as well as I haven't told everybody about the crappie tournaments, but they are coming back to fruition, and we're going to have them in April. But no hesitation when you ask this company to be a sponsor for Lake Fest and then turn around and ask him to be a sponsor for a crappie tournament. Oh yeah, we're all in. So we're proud to have you here too. Thank you.
I think it's a win-win for all of us.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I do.
Let's go ahead.
It's a long game.
Win-win.
Let's move on to regular agenda item G. Discuss, consider possible action concerning adopting financial investment policy and appointing primary and secondary financial investment officer by city ordinance requested by Andrew Bill. And I'll let Andrew, this is something that we're going to need to do. Go ahead, Andrew.
It's pretty cut and dry. It's a template that we got from our training, and it basically says the law requires that you review your investment policy every year. This is where you get to tell me who you want as your investment officer, and it also gives you the opportunity to tell me what your risk level is. So what kind of securities you want me to invest in and don't want to invest in. So if CDs is the only tolerance you have, then we'll stick to CDs. If you want to do a certain percentage of the funds in a certain kind of investment, I'm going to recommend TexPool for right now, and I'd like to recommend TexPool Prime simply because they're going to be earning us about 2% over the next year, and it gives me the ability to pull that money and put it in at will. It's not tied up into a CD that matures. CDs, even though we have some competitive rates coming our way with Bancorp, I still feel like we're going to get better returns on our revenues in TexPool Prime. We could do TexPool if you don't feel that, if you feel that's too risky, lowers it down to about 1.4% earnings. This is public funds, and part of the training is that we are cautious with the public's money. We want to leverage it as much as we can, but earning 10, 15, 14% is out of the question. I think so right now the best we can do is about 2%, but it's better than nothing.
Who would you, investment officers?
That is really up to you. It could be one of the council and the staff. It could be 2 members of the staff. I definitely, since I've gone to the training, I'd be the best first choice since I've already got that training under my belt.
I could throw a recommendation out there. Sorry to throw you into the bus, Jill, but I think I've got a lot going on, and I think your expertise financially, if you would be willing, I think you would be a good fit for you.
Okay, I'm happy to help.
Be first, it should be second.
Right, and that's a good strategy if I'm not available, or if for illness, as we've seen. I mean, I was contemplating surgery for a whole minute, and that kind of scared me. But having somebody as a backup is a good idea. You never know when you might need to pull that cash out in a hurry.
And I guess my personal opinion is I like oversight, and I think that oversight coming from a council member versus a staff member, that makes me feel better. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on that.
You know, I would think that your economic development director, coordinator, what do we call it?
Director.
Could be a third party to all that, because I do appreciate her knowledge.
Okay.
I shouldn't bring in a motion including myself on the deal, so somebody else has to.
Anybody got comments? Okay. Anybody else want to make a motion?
I'd rather somebody else do it since it's naming me as part of it.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Andrew Bill as city administrator, Jill Cox as mayor pro tem, and also the new economic development director as primary, secondary, and I guess third financial investment officer by city ordinance.
Second that motion.
Utilizing, do we need to say Tex Pool Prime, or does it matter?
Yeah, I would recommend you give me your risk tolerance. Tex Pool Prime is more risky. Tex Pool is the least risky. I would recommend you throw in CDs as an investment option, as well as overnight investment.
Y'all want to list those?
Tex Pool or Prime?
Well, Tex Pool Prime is riskier, so, and council can change this, but right now, the economy is doing very well, so if we want to be riskier, that's fine. But as soon as it goes south, we could lose a lot of public money.
If you give us part of the Investment Act is that we monitor the risk daily. It is our job to go out there and check on our banks to make sure they're liquid. There's not going to be that there's no run on a bank, and we monitor those Tex Pool accounts daily. It's part of our job.
In addition to that motion, utilizing minimal risk, using such things as Tex Pool, CDs, and other investments that have minimal risk.
Right.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Discuss, consider possible action concerning citywide cleanup date requested by Councilwoman Monica Sturjanic.
Okay, I brought this up so we could set a date to get our city cleaned up like we traditionally do every year. And we usually set that right before Lake Fest. And Lake Fest this year falling on the 12th. We really don't want to do it on the 5th, so if we could do it either like the 21st or 28th, and that's open for discussion.
I say 28th. It's a little bit later, warmer, but.
Okay. Anyone else?
Everybody kind of agreed with that?
28th, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion on regular agenda item H that we set our citywide cleanup for April the 28th. That would be Saturday, April 28th.
Second. All right. All in favor? Okay. And all opposed by the same? Seeing none, motion carries. Regular agenda item I, discuss, consider possible action concerning purchasing Altoid mosquito pest control products to treat and help minimize the impact of mosquito-borne diseases, requested by Mayor Pro Tem Jill Cox.
This particular product was recommended to treat things like the tires over at Mike's spot, the ditches, the places. We've got some areas in town where water stands and mosquitoes are horrible. And if we can do something about them before they get bad, we can stop them from, giving everybody the West Nile. But we've got to be able to put a product in the hands of our guys in the department to go and spray.
Is it a spray or?
It's a pellet. The one we're going to recommend is a pellet.
Okay.
Oh, is that the one you throw in like in ponds?
It's like a dunk, but it's not. It's like
it lasts a lot longer. Yeah. It's not like you have to do it again in the next month.
Right.
And if it rains, it's still effective.
Right.
Do we know the cost or anything?
I put it in here. It's a little over $1,100.
What's shelf life on it?
I don't know. I can't tell you that.
It says it's good on the water surface for 30 days or longer. My thing is it something that if a kid plays in the puddle and they pick it up, can they pick it up and eat it? Because I don't want to have that responsibility.
Well, yeah, but it's, I think for this, because I know other cities put this in their ponds. I mean, it's, what you do is I think you broadcast it.
Okay.
And so it's going to sink, but then it starts to, they're kind of, it starts to dissolve like a pill. They dissolve slowly, but I don't think, I mean, is there a risk? I don't think a kid's going to pick it up to eat it. But
Well, they're eating Tide Pods.
Well, this is true.
That's very sad and
And they'll be
disturbing.
voting in the next election.
Yeah.
Scary. Do what?
They'll be voting in the next presidential election.
Yeah, I know, that's scary.
It is scary.
So I think on that front, you know,
And there's a risk of West Nile too.
We've
Yeah.
never
Well,
taken,
it's
we've
a
never been
balancing act.
proactive about trying to do something
Well, we've
about the
had West
mosquito.
Nile.
What,
Yeah.
what,
As a West Nile survivor who nearly died from that, I think I'd take the risk on the
What-
pellet.
what do y'all want,
Yeah.
Frank? What do you want? Your guys are putting this out.
'Cause we used to
Product doesn't
spray.
matter to me as long as it's recommended to do what it needs to do.
So Williamson County,
This is recommended by Williamson
it's
County.
recommended by, because I got an email.
Yeah,
Right.
I did too.
zoonosis.
So it wasn't just me. So did everybody get the email?
Yeah.
Mosquito
Yeah,
control.
that's why I sent it back to him and said, can we put this on the agenda and get some purchased and let's get them before they get bad.
Yeah, 'cause
Okay. Are we good?
Good.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion on regular agenda item 4I that we go ahead and purchase the Alstoid mosquito pest control products to help treat and minimize the impact.
Second.
All in favor? All right. All opposed by the same? Seeing none, motion carries. Regular agenda item J, discuss, consider possible action concerning adopting a new ordinance regarding sexual-oriented business limitations requested by Mayor Cheatham. I didn't see anything in here.
I put it at the
Yes,
back.
very
Oh,
last.
then I must have looked over it. I'm sorry.
What did we vote on last month for something?
We were going to
We tabled it.
postpone
Oh,
it.
we tabled.
We tabled it.
Okey doke. Gotcha.
So, I'll just give y'all some of my thought pattern. Williamson County is changing, and what will happen is eventually, I'm afraid that if, let's say, Commissioners Court were to vote to legalize sexually oriented businesses to open in the county, because right now I believe there's a ban. I might be incorrect. We would have this already on the books, so that we don't have to worry about it in the future.
So the one that I've got in front of you is a direct copy with only the names City of Granger and City Manager replaced with City Administrator. Other than that, it's basically Georgetown. The reason why I went that route was because it's been there for a while and it's been fleshed out.
And it's in this county.
Right, and it's
Okay.
in this county.
I like it.
But here's the thing, you have to understand, if you pass this, you're going to have to think about where you would zone a sexually oriented business were one to come to town. It isn't about, I think, excluding them entirely. It's about telling them where they can go.
And keeping it away from right across from the shore.
Right.
Yeah, because that's in there. It says so much feet or
From a school.
school and churches.
Because there have been legal lawsuits that have been won by sexually oriented businesses against cities. So the thing is that you have to have a zoning appropriate for it.
So I guess almost the thought pattern is, if there was one, where would we want it to be?
Mm-hmm.
This specifies industrial area.
And we
Do
have
we
none.
currently have any industrial area?
Well, if you read that zoning ordinance that we have, we don't have any industrial area, but we have zoning.
There you go. Keep talking.
We have, it's defined, but we haven't identified any.
So we'd be currently covered.
Well, right now we have no industrial zoning.
Okay. So if we pass this, we're pretty much banning it, and we could get into trouble if somebody so desired.
I think you could, yes, but I think on the flip side, if you didn't have it and somebody wanted to bring one in, they could pretty much put it anywhere.
So
in any of the commercial districts.
To
anyway.
cover the city, could you make a motion to enact this, and as the ordinances and planning and zoning are in discussions, they set out a industrial area, so that you have proactively said, we're planning on doing this.
I would say that if you have master planning sessions with your planning and zoning and any other kind of committees, including the council, to discuss the placement in the future as the city grows, I think that sufficiently covers you.
I make a motion that we adopt the new ordinance regarding sexually oriented business limitations with, as time goes on and planning and zoning continue to meet, that they set forth industrial areas.
Second.
All in favor? All right, all opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Amen.
All right.
That one goes.
All opposed? None, motion carries.
I'm going to